live?
Yeah, we're live. What do you have in that protein powder?
It's just it's chocolate honeycomb flavored.
Chocolate honeycomb protein powder. I've never heard anything like it.
I will come clean before we start because for me it's 8 p.m. I was just at the pub down the road with a couple of I'm three beers deep on this Friday. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
I'm 3 pints deep on this Friday afternoon. We have a beer in Australia. Well, actually, not Australia. It's a Western Australian beer. It's called Single Fin. It's delicious. It's great. But I was just down the road, literally 5 minutes from where my apartment is here, because this is where I started playing Counter-Strike at a LAN cafe that no longer exists. But the cousin of the owner, I was hanging out with one of the guys I used to play with, and there was even another bloke. He didn't play like competitively or anything, but he used to be at the LAN cafe, and I was just hanging out with them for a bit before we started this. So I did have a 10-minute nap just to recalibrate myself before we got into this, because Jason, you just woke up. Yanko, it's the middle of your day. But for me, Friday's over, guys. Friday is done, and I'll let you know that the future is bright.
Yeah, this is weird now. You are about 13 hours in the future. That's a little bit crazy.
Well,
it's a good future.
You know, one of the potential titles for the podcast was Globally Offensive as well.
Yeah.
At the very beginning.
Good logo, that one.
And this would have been really that. We are global, 3 different continents.
I'll be in Serbia soon. We're looking at, like, I'll be there, I reckon, on the 9th of January. I should get there then. I leave here on, like, the morning of the 8th. I think I get there on the 9th, and then I leave on the 12th. But I'll be there for the award show, right? So I'm going to fly there and then fly straight back. And then if ESL ever get back to us, I'll probably be working Katowice. I don't know. Who knows? It's a mystery over there right now. Shout out to Joey, the Joe Boy Miller, one time.
We're in a very similar boat.
Doing well.
Yeah, I hope he's doing great. Yeah, I'll be there on the 9th as well. So we'll hang out. And Jane will be there too if she gets her. Yeah. Jane will be there too if
at this place behind me.
If her passport gets figured out.
What do you mean if her passport gets figured out, Jason? You're American. You can make anything happen.
She has an expired passport, so we have to wait until it's within 2 weeks of the trip and then apply for an emergency passport due to already booked travel. And hopefully that comes in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's right after the Christmas break, so I'm feeling relatively shifty on it. You know, I'm not full confidence that it's gonna happen.
Don't let the government hear that.
And right before the inauguration, so you know.
True. There's
how hard do people work in that?
There's a lot of things that have a lot more focus than my wife's passport, unfortunately.
Jason, I've been thinking about something.
All right, that's good news.
The Americans, they probably don't like me, right? I'm pretty harsh on the Americans. I give them a hard time, you know.
In terms of Counter-Strike or just in general?
Yeah. In terms of Counter-Strike, right? I'm always talking stuff, and like they're easy to upset, the Americans. You don't get upset. Like, you don't seem like you give a fuck. But no. I've upset, like, and you got a lot of people there, you know, and I want to make reparations. You know, what can we do? How can I mend this bridge? How can I repair this fence?
Well, you got to bend the knee, Chad.
I don't know about that. Like, surely there's a middle ground here.
I think at this point you got to send a tweet to Donnie T, and you got to ask for forgiveness directly to the man. We're bringing Canada in as our 51st state, which is quite nice.
Okay.
And as part of the Commonwealth, I think we could extend some courtesy to you down in Australia to maybe find the reparations within your heart.
I'll make you a deal. You guys work out what the fuck's going on with these drones, and we'll think about bending the knee. If you can sort out this drone situation, Jason, because I'm getting a little bit worried about these drones.
Come on. We all know we've had the drones figured out for a while. We're just not telling anyone. We just kind of find it funny at this point.
Well, I was just in China. I'm telling you, it's not their drones. They got some crazy drones over there, but we were having a chat.
Some odd drones.
It's not their drones.
Oh, yeah. The perfect world have good information on that, good intel to pass along.
Yeah, we were sitting down. We were having a good chat. You know, obviously, Australia and China, we get along very well. They own half the country. Yeah, so basically, you know, we already have...
In reality, man, these drones are over New Jersey. And I'll be honest with you, no one in this country gives a fuck about New Jersey.
Now, here's what I will say. I will say shout out to everybody from New Jersey. If anyone's watched from New Jersey and you're an American listener and I upset you in the past, I love you guys. I love New Jersey. It's a great place. You guys have an awesome accent. Anytime that I can come to New Jersey, maybe try some... Jason, what food they got there in New Jersey?
I think Coney dogs are the big thing.
I'll smash some of those. You know, we'll have a great time. So shout out to everybody from New Jersey, Atlanta, New York, LA. I could name all 50 states, I guess, and cities.
They got some great gabagool there, Jason, right?
Yeah, some good gabagool as well.
Some great waste management companies there.
Some concrete booties.
As you do. Yeah, we love a bit of all that out there. How is China? Is China cool?
I like Shanghai. I know that's a controversial take, but we've been to China a bunch, right? We went to Chengdu earlier in the year. I thought that was good. Went to Shanghai, and then just as long as your apps are working, boys, that's what it's all about. If your apps are working, you're fine. If you're like me and you have a beard on your passport photo, you don't have a beard, you're gonna have a hard time. Purely because when you try and do the facial recognition on the scanner, because once you start spending a decent amount of money there in China, they want to know who the fuck you are. And apparently I don't match my passport picture. So shout out to me one time. But I got on the phone. There's like a help desk there. So essentially this hotel that we were staying at was only people who were there for the major, right? There was two like security checkpoints. There was one like at the main gate where they kind of kept all the fans outside. And then even as you were entering the hotel, there was some guy who was like making sure you had your badge every time. So there was like a double security check to get in, and you had to have a badge around the hotel. Like I never seen anything like it in my life. And then I had a badge for setup day and then a badge for arena days. So there's a lot of badges going on, which is cool because I like to collect the badges. But yeah, it was all right. Once I was able to work out how I could pay, but you use DD, you use WeChat, use Alipay, you get all that sorted and away you go. The language barrier is something, but they just see that you're a Westerner, right? Or that you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
And, mate, I've been to China a shitload of times. Like it's not too much of a culture shock for me, but it was good fun. Like it was interesting, obviously having a bit more of an intimate production. There was 2 Swedes, there was 3 Romanian production blokes, and then there was like Silviu, the boss man, was there as well. Then there was Chev, there was Jay, and then there was obviously the 4 commentators that we had there. So it was a bit more of like an intimate crew that we had going on, which felt a bit more old school, but like in a good way, not in like a bad way. But all in all, I had a good time.
Good. Nice.
Thanks, Jason.
How was your time, Jason?
It was fine, man. It was great. Came home, just got to relax. Got to
There's a fucking ladder right next to you, motherfucker.
Yeah, I've been painting as well. I'm painting this room. Obviously, haven't gotten to the wall behind me quite yet. But the other 2 walls that I'm looking at are looking pretty
what
rock
color?
solid. It's called Cyberspace by a company called Sherwin-Williams. I know that sounds really campy and catchy, but I'm a child of the 90s, so it is kind of a catchy name for me. It's like a deep charcoal gray with like bluish tones. So it's going to have some nice shadows. It's going to be dark. This wall behind me is going to be an accent wall. Going to make it a lighter color, which is a little bit funky. But then this room is going to look good. Then I'm going to get some carpet installed, and then we're off to the races. And this is what it's like being middle-aged in suburban America.
That's kind of it.
I'm
That's
pumped.
cyberspace. That right there is cyberspace.
Yeah, that one is. That's a really good demonstration.
And you said it was by
Sherwin-Williams.
Yep, that's the one that's here right now. I found it.
Yeah. So this is gonna be my little recording studio. I'm gonna get, once the carpet's in here, I get all the little hardware that I have set up and rock and roll.
What are you going to record?
That's my life. This podcast mostly. I've basically just created a podcast studio.
OnlyFans feed pictures, of course.
All that work just to do this podcast.
Just for the Discord users. Shout out to all 2,200 of you guys. That's what this is for. This is for you people out there. It's gonna benefit you in no way, but it's gonna look cool on the camera.
That's what it's all about, is how cool it looks on the camera. If we started about half an hour earlier, we would have had a sick sunset going on, but we missed that. So I was having a nap.
Still got the sunrise coming up on this part of the world. It's not quite up yet, so I can keep you guys in tune with when that occurs.
Oh, it's cold where you motherfuckers are. It was 36 today.
It snowed 5 inches over the night.
5 inches?
Yeah.
Jason, you wouldn't know what to do with 5 inches.
No, it's a whole new experience for me. There he is. He's had his beers. He's had his beers.
It is, boys. I joined this podcast room thing with my name was Sammy Average Dick.
Why? Why was it Sammy Average Dick?
I thought, like, if I went big dick, like, what are we saying there? You know, what am I compensating for? But if I
True, then you have a lot to live up to.
Yeah, and I don't know who Sammy is. I just thought, well, we better be nice to Sammy. We don't want to fucking give him too much of a hard time. We want to be kind to him. Yeah. Yanko, can I say something? Those mornings when you're on the analyst desk, I thought you wanted to kill everybody on the panel with you, mate. I was looking at you like, are you going to pull a knife and stab someone in the neck? Is that what's going to happen? Am I going to see Yanko? Because like I don't know why. I just thought you looked like you had some business to take care of. That's what it looked like when you were doing the major desk. I was like, Yanko's here for fucking business. He's not here for shits and giggles.
Well, I think that's what the major playoffs are about for the most part, right? Like, I think those are the easiest games to do. Like, you just talk about the games, you talk about the teams, you know, there's storylines, there's narratives. There was a ton of games that these teams have played in the last month, so you have a good sample size, sort of know what they're made of in that sense.
My man.
And then it's just sort of like building the narrative and presenting kind of the story to the viewer, right? Like letting them know what to expect. If Team A is going to win, how should it look like? If Team B is going to win, what's the best way for them to grab that win? I mean, obviously, you always try to, you know, you want to be entertaining at the end of the day, and then I don't get it's different things and blah 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 and sprinkle in, but we're not there to, you know, take the piss. Like it's the quarterfinal, semifinal of the major, and it does feel like it is more business. And I don't know if maybe just being remote had an effect to it. I'm not sure. So maybe that it felt more.
So you didn't want to kill
sterile.
anyone. You didn't actually want to kill anyone.
No, I definitely did, but it had.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. I didn't. It's just I don't know why it came off that way. Maybe that's just my personality, you know.
Bro, it was hard. It was hard getting up for those games over here. I
What was
couldn't
the
even catch
time?
the first one. It was the first game started at 1 a.m. Or
Oh.
no, yeah, 1 a.m. And then the second game started at 4. So I did that whole thing where I was like, all right, fuck the first game. I'm aiming for game 2. I'll
The
watch
fact
that
you
one
even
later.
woke up for the second game is impressive, though. Really.
Yeah, it's like you would maybe stay up for the first one, and then that's it.
Yeah, I don't stay up that late. I'm in bed at like, 9:30, 10 when I'm home.
Yeah.
So, that 1 a.m. that ain't happening. That's not within my reach. The
No,
4
I'm the
a.m.
same
one.
as you.
Yeah, the 4 a.m. one I can do. It causes a little bit of a rougher day, but I wanted to catch the game, so that was sweet. But yeah, it was brutal seeing those and seeing that time zone. Again, we covered it. I don't really care about the time zone, but it was brutal seeing I'm so curious about the Chinese viewership because the English language viewership got destroyed, as you would expect.
Yeah, I don't know. What was there was like 1.3 million, which was about like 600,000 or 500,000 away from
I
whatever
know
Copenhagen had.
through the different stages, it like dropped like 40-some%, I think,
Yeah.
like in terms of average viewership and peak viewership for the opening and elimination stages compared to Copenhagen, which is entirely to be expected. I would just be really curious what the Chinese viewership stats come up with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. But I don't know. I was talking to Valve, right? They were there, same crew as always, like the same 4
Yep.
blokes. They were there, and like they know the figures of the markets, right? And they seem like it was something that there's a big market in China that they're, or at least in that part of the world that they were servicing. Yeah, sure. I think the angle I take on it is we've had 21 majors. So if every 20 majors we do one in China, it's probably fine, right? Like,
Yeah.
it sucks, right? And I get it hurts for the Europeans and the Americans more so based off what Jason's saying there. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, it just, I think if we want to try and be more global, we need to be able to embrace these different time zones.
I think the bigger problem is not that part of the world as much as China, because like the games have to be scheduled earlier. Like you could not have a game scheduled at 8 p.m., which would have been fine, right? Because of their own rules and whatnot in regards to venues or gatherings or whatever it is. So I think that hurt it a little bit too, because if you were able to push it by like 3 more hours, right, for EU, that would make the first game at like in the main time zone at like 10, 11 a.m. Like, sure, it's not, or even 12. Like, that's not ideal, but it's still, you can catch the game. It's not like in the evening, so you can combine it with other things, or I don't know. But it would be fine. Like, NA still gets wrecked, but even for them, then that second game is like early in the morning.
Perfect,
so you can wake up for that. You can catch the second game on each of these days, and you can catch the grand final. So, yeah, it's not ideal, but as Chad said, I think it's actually pretty crazy that it's once every 20 majors. Like, if it's once every 8 to 10, like something like that, like once every 4 years, you have an event in that region. I think that's, reasonable sort of to for everyone to be like, okay, it's been a while. It's their turn. Let's give it to them.
What if it's once every 2 years? Would you guys freak the fuck out?
Yes.
Well, it won't be because the next 2 years we know where all the majors are. Jason, where's your mic?
So I said, what if? I don't know. I couldn't find it this morning. So, yeah, it's unpacked somewhere in the house. I'll get to it. You know, I didn't want to delay things this morning, so I just decided I'd go old school.
In that, I have to, as someone who is the resident sort of not having a mic stand guy,
Yeah.
that's not how you do it. Like, you can't lean it on the table because then it makes all these sounds and noises a little bit. Like, you have to hold it in your hand. It has to.
The whole time.
There has to.
Nah,
Yeah, you
I'm
can't
setting
be
it
doing
down.
that.
Yeah, I can. Watch this shit. There ain't
I
gonna be a
have my
single fucking
volume.
noise.
I have my volume low enough that it's not bothering me. Like I can hear that he's making external noises, Yanko, but it's not loud enough. It's going to bother me.
Wait,
It'll
what
bother the
external
viewers.
noises am I making? What
Moving
am
the
I-
microphone around.
When you move the mic, it makes a noise because it hits the table.
Yeah.
Now it's fine. Now it's like, okay, but let's see when it falls down in 5 minutes.
This is rock steady, dog. This ain't falling down. This is
Yeah.
Jason, I have a
5
question.
and a half inches or whatever it is.
yeah. What's up?
How old is your child?
Gonna be 2 years in January.
Okay, so you still see my sister's kid is 2.5.
Yeah.
And my sister's tall. She's like just a little bit shorter than me. And I know I'm not a tall man, but like for a woman, so she's like 5'10", right?
Yeah.
Her partner is like fucking, I don't know, 6'3". So they're like,
It's not bad.
they're up there. This fucking 2.5-year-old, or my niece, as I probably should refer to her, she looks like a 5-year-old, bro. She's
She
huge.
big. She's a big one. Yeah.
She's like running around and talking and seeing my parents with a kid and the amount of stuff they're doing. Oh, let's pull out this and let's get the cars going and where's your dinosaur?
Yeah.
And I only saw the kid for 2 hours. I was exhausted. So if I ever actually had any thoughts of a kid, I'm off. I'm done. Like just looking at my niece, I'm out.
Yeah, you're
I'm
off the ride now?
I'm fucking out, mate. I was exhausted after a day. I didn't do anything.
No, they start once they start moving and talking and being able to like fall downstairs and stuff. It gets a little bit more intense. You gotta chase them everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's intense.
Or you
It's
push them,
different.
Jason.
I'll tell you, Chad, because I felt the same, but it's different when it's your kid.
I imagine so, Yanko.
Then somehow you're like cool to do all that stuff. You still kind of hate doing it with other people's kids. At least I do. But
I do too.
for my kid, I'm like, yeah, it's interesting. It's like having, it's like a really, really long RPG campaign.
And I hate those.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, now.
Well,
yeah, I
shit.
don't know. I think for the 4 days I've been home, I'm turned off. I'm done.
It gets cute when it's your own. Yeah, no, I understand the feeling. I understand the sentiment. Yeah, it gets a little crazy, but it's fun. It gets actually fun chasing it around because the benefit is now when I go do stupid shit like go to the grocery store or boring shit, having a kid there automatically makes it a little bit more exciting. A
You
little
seeing
bit
it
more
through their
interesting.
eyes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like they're having a great time with it. And also, once again, you're in public and you have to keep this little creature alive. So it is like a little RPG game. It's like your side quest is like keep your companion alive for this next stretch of the game.
What
That's
happens
how I
if
look
you?
at it.
Oh, can I get grim? Because again, I am a little bit.
You can
fucking-
get grim,
I'm on
yeah.
the sauce right now.
Yeah.
What happens if you have a kid and they like? I'm not saying that you neglect them and they die, but like, what if
Okay.
they like choke and they die? Like, what happens?
I
They
don't
just
know.
die?
I think,
Well,
I think they just die.
Like, I mean, do the cops like come after you? Or what happens? Like,
I think it depends on the context and if someone's going to be, charging you with the crime of. I know. I don't know why we went to this place.
do you get like? Do the cops like do an investigation? They must do an investigation. What if you're a terrible parent?
Yeah. What if? I don't think they do an investigation unless there's evidence that you are in fact a negligent and terrible parent. I don't think they can just open an investigation on their own unless there's some kind of evidence of neglect.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't wish
Trust
that
me,
on
This is
any
a segue
children.
into like a Counter-Strike team
I
or
know.
an org or a player or
Somebody
who do you
bail
want
me
to
out
look
of this.
into, Chad?
There's some topics tonight that are going to be a bit tough that I didn't want to do, but we're going to have to do them, aren't we? We're going to have to do
Really?
this.
I know. I can think of one right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I sat and I actually thought about it for once, and I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to say. At least I did know what I was going to say. So we'll see what comes out of my mouth when we get there. But where do we want to start the discourse, the dialogue, the discussion?
I guess we should just let's get the major finish up the major playoffs out of the way before we move on to the other stuff. I say get it out of the way as if it's some like minor
I think
bullshit
actually
that went down. But
I think that the major playoffs were sick. Like
Yeah.
we had a lot of good games, actually.
Agreed.
You know, wild games. Like even on the quarterfinal days, we had like some sick individual performances from different players on different maps, sick moments, exciting games, exciting narratives. So just like the first overall impression, it was a good major. Like there weren't any big hiccups in terms of like problems, issues, nothing like that. Right? Am I forgetting?
There was some
something?
slight tech delays in the Mouse versus Spirit game. I think Torji was having
Yes.
PC issues, and that was about it, really. Me and Alex were doing that one, and there was slight delays on that. But otherwise, it was pretty straightforward, pretty standard. When games would end, there tended to be about an hour, depending on, like, the schedule wasn't really adhered to in the arena, which is fair enough because, like, teams need to go out and warm up. I saw backstage that they had, like, not only did they have a room for each team to chill in on their own while they were waiting to go and play, they also had setups available so they could make sure that they were, if they wanted to, they could warm up before they were playing. What else did I see? In the hotel, I was on the 8th floor, and I could see down to the 5th floor. The 5th floor was where all the prac rooms were, and I could see into like some of the prac rooms for the players. But yeah, overall, I'd say for the playoff bracket, the only thing that was a bit strange was the crowd on the Thursday, and then they kind of picked up as the weekend went on. The crowd was a bit more subdued. It was full, but they were subdued, and like they had a high level of appreciation for the game, but they were a bit more quiet. And maybe that could have been like G2 wasn't playing on the Thursday. FaZe wasn't playing on the Thursday, so those were the two teams that they really liked a lot. They seemed to like Twist, and they seemed to like JKS a bit. They all enjoyed Donk, obviously, but they were making the most noise when G2 and FaZe were in the arena. But yeah, I think that the sentiment of like overall it was pretty good. I think for the people at home, I don't know how it was for you guys in studio, Yanko, but there was some like tech issues regarding like the feed that was being sent, especially on the Thursday. But PGL were able to rectify that, at least for the most part, for the remainder of the weekend. But all in all, yeah, I would say pretty damn good. I think it all, for, at least from my perspective, right? Which is obviously different from the general viewer's perspective, but I thought it was pretty good.
No, I think as a viewer as well, spectating at least the second game of every day, everything looked solid. Crowd noise came through really well. Crowd came off, and I didn't get the sense that they were subdued. It felt very much like they were the same. They'd been through the opening and elimination stage, a little bit reactive. And yeah, I thought the games were sick. The bracket played out pretty much to expect. No like crazy upset that kind of ruined a run, that ruined maybe a potential great grand final. Yeah, everything felt clean as from a viewership perspective. Yeah, outside of maybe if there were delays, lack of communication and information, which is exactly what I expected. Yeah, so as a viewer, it was cool.
It helped being in the server because I could see what all the problems were, right, when I was in the CST VIP, because the players were just tied to each other what was going on. So, like, I had a pretty good scope of if there were tech issues of what was happening. And then every day I'd go have a discussion with, like, Chev or Jay. Like, I message Jay on WhatsApp, like, every day when we're at an event to kind of see what's up and get those kind of comms coming through. But everything from that angle was pretty good. I know that, like, so the way that it worked for the setup was they arrived on the Monday, I think it was. They all flew a day earlier than me, Alex, Mohan, and Connor. So the production was there a day earlier, and they walked in, and there was essentially just a room with tables. And then they had to go through Perfect World to be able to get like all the things they needed, the PCs, the network cables, and everything. And then when we were doing the teardown on the final night, like just the amount of stuff, like the amount of cables there is fucking crazy, and screens and everything. But like Perfect World, they had a bloke that was essentially our translator. His name was Josh. And he was our liaison to Perfect World. If we ever needed anything, we chatted with him, and it all was pretty straightforward, and they got everything that they needed. And I know from Thursday to Friday, like me and Alex went in early to watch the first game, just to hear the crowd audio, right? To see from like a commentary perspective what would be nice to change, so that like we could give suggestions to the sound guy. And the sound guys were actually guys who used to work for DreamHack, and now they work for that Bumble whatever company, which then I guess they get contracted out by Sylvia to work for PGL. And then one of the blokes was Eric, which I don't know if you guys remember, but Eric used to do like all the sound mixing and stuff for DreamHack back in the day. We're going back like 4 or 5 years, but he's a good bloke, and he had it all like absolutely nailed. So it was really nice from that, and we could just go have that conversation. So that was pretty cool. And then I guess from the games, yeah, like I think we had If you got, like, the only team that would have been better to be in the playoffs, and obviously they made their own bed, so they got a fucking lie in it, right? Was Na'Vi, right? They woke up way too fucking late, and that was their own problem. But that was the only team that we were missing from the year's worth of Counter-Strike within the playoffs, and they could have replaced either a Heroic or a Liquid, and probably a Liquid, really, right? Like, let's be honest, Liquid were probably the team that they should have been in there for. Heroic actually played some gritty Counter-Strike and looked like they had like a few more punches to pull. Shout out to Degster. I think on the last episode we did, I was questioning some of his decision making, and I'm not vindicating him from all of that, but him in the clutch and his impact that he was able to make in the last few matches that they played was great. Like he had found the form of Degster that we had from CS:GO, at least in that regard, impact wise.
I think he had a really good kind of end to this major. I'm still with you in the sense that I think I question a lot of his decisions and positioning and how he handles different situations, but it's clear like outside of those scenarios, he actually found ways to have impact for Heroic that I think for me had been missing in his performances for the last few months of him in this roster. I was kind of like, okay, if we're not going to get the old Dexter in the sense of having impact and winning, like you said, winning clutches or just having good mid-round sequences, but we're still going to get the old Dexter of bad decision making, bad positioning, like this isn't worth it. And I think you finally got the positive with kind of the negative aspect of his game towards the end of their run, which was cool to see. It brings them to a new level. I was super impressed with Heroic throughout this entire run that they had. Like it felt like every game they stepped up and like impressed me even a little bit more. So that was cool to see. But quarterfinals felt like a pretty appropriate ending for them. Gave G2 a run for their money.
They could have won that series.
Yeah, overtime on Mirage, overtime on the third map. They very much could have.
Yeah, Malbs had to come in huge, right, within that series to be able to get them across
and
the
Nico
line.
had a B series as well. Like, Malbs came in towards the third map, I think it was.
It was Mirage where Malbs had his impact, yeah. But, I think that it's not that I had ruled Heroic out. It's just that, like, I know the pieces, but I just didn't think it would be enough for them to be such a force. But they had a really tough run. They were competitive against everybody. So they exceeded my expectations probably the most out of all teams, I would say. It's just the thing that I see with that team is like there are good pieces to it. I just imagine that they'd be one of the farm teams that I'd be going to if I was a bigger name, trying to get like a Kixon or trying to get a Nertz or somebody, right? So we'll see what happens with them throughout the break. But yeah, I don't know if they'll stay as is. Maybe they will.
I think there's a lot of teams in that situation, though, in these major playoffs. Maybe not a lot. A lot might be aggressive, but it feels like there's going to be, or there should be, some changes to plenty of the playoff teams.
Well, you're feeling like a Mouse is probably the other name in that mix, right?
Yeah, but I think Mouse is going to get poached as well, more than anything. Like, for me, I think the interesting conversation is a team like FaZe that made it to the finals, obviously, because I think they probably should still stick with some ideas of changing. As weird as that might sound. I think Spirit might have a decision to make in that regard as well, even though they just won the major. I think that'd be a very curious conversation to be on the inside of, is if you want to make any changes with Spirit.
I don't think so. I reckon
you don't think so? I feel like it wasn't super convincing that whole way through, and they built up into it. I'd wonder if you still go ahead and have the conversation and just see where everyone's kind of lying.
I don't know. Like, I think we need to change our framing, right? Like, so what are we within the course of a year of Counter-Strike, right? Because like I am as guilty as every other human being with this, but like from event to event, we kind of change our view on all of these things. Like, oh, they're not in form, or these guys aren't performing, and right. I think that we're very quick to judge in that sense, but with the pillars now being set of the majors at the end of the season every single time, what you do in between is obviously important. Like, you need to be showing good form, and trophies are nice, but if you don't win every event, it's not necessarily the end of the world, right? Like, as long as you're still a championship caliber squad, you're making deep runs, you're getting top four. Like, there was some games, like the Furia game for Spirit was so worrying. You're sitting there going, what the fuck is happening here? Like, they're getting destroyed by Fallen, and like this doesn't look mega convincing. But you only need to time that peak, right? And that's essentially what they did. Would they have beaten a Vitality or a G2? I don't know.
But the question is also, like, I think mostly in regards to Magix and his performance, like, do you think that's a replicable performance from him that he had in the grand final? Or was it just like a one-off that he just had a day, right?
But that was more like, I'm not saying that level, but I think that what his output was more like the old version of him than the one we've been having more recently. Because he's not a bad player. I don't think that's a fair surmise of him overall.
what's the difference between a bad player and a guy who's been playing bad for a long time?
Yeah, okay.
You know, I can agree with you that he's definitely had his good moments. Even in Katowice, it was also, you know, obviously Donk is always going to lead the way for them. Like, there's no doubt about that. But if they're going to win a tournament, other guys have to do a bare minimum, you know, in their roles, right? Like, you can't just fumble kills and fumble rounds and just be half useless on maps. Like, even Donk can't get you out of that rut. So, and for any team, one result like won't change the way you're thinking about stuff, right? And how you evaluate your team. Like, sure, you're going to be happy that you won, but every team, you're always looking at how do we win consistently, and do we feel like we can in every tournament go and be one of the favorites, right? And it's going to take the utmost best from anyone else to take us down. And I don't think necessarily Spirit. I think definitely, man, just the the eye test. Like, when you watch them play, like, they're not a team that's super clean. Like, they're not a team that's like super well drilled, that has a lot of depth. Like, they're just not. Like, they're a team that has the best player in the world, right? And then have some other guys who at different times, if they can step up and do a little bit, the stars
might be
as
enough,
well.
yeah.
May as well align for them, and they can go on to win a tournament. I think you just love the majors, man, because it's like the pinnacle of competitive Counter-Strike. And you can sit here and talk about ifs and whats and could'ves, like Navi wasn't even in the playoffs. So then all of a sudden it looks like a fucking open major for G2, right? Like, the one team that they struggled against is not even in the playoffs. I was actually most worried about the Heroic game. I was like, if they're able to beat Heroic, I thought like they were going to win it all, because they have such a good track record against the other teams. I think only if Mouse was in the final could have been tricky, right? But against Spirit and FaZe, they have such a good track record. And then you go into the semifinal against FaZe, and their best two players are Snacks and Hunter. It's just, no, but what you're not going to, that cannot happen. Simple as that. And it is a byproduct, like, you can forgive Malbs for his performance. Like, he is
his
still
first major.
very new, yes, absolutely. And he did have a great map against Heroic. Otherwise, a bit of a shaky series in some moments. Like, you look at that nuke, like, G2 should have won nuke so easily. I mean, they were losing so many silly rounds against. I mean, you just look at that 4v2 pistol round, man. And unfortunately, a couple of times it was Malb. It was like, I mean, what are like it's like, how do you say it? The deer in the headlights. It's just like kind of stuck doing something that you don't. If you ask him after the game, I'm sure what was going through. He's like, I don't know. He would, it would just be like,
I blacked out.
Yeah, it's just sort of a choke, right? And it's unfortunate that it happened a couple of times in some key moments, right? That m0NESY wasn't on his game either.
m0NESY was missing the whole time.
Yeah.
This whole major from m0NESY was underwhelming.
Yeah, and then you had Nico, which is like the one I feel like still flaw in his game, and it's not necessarily a small one, is that he still has moments where he tries to do too much. Like, he tries to force plays and like tries to go for a play when there's no play there for him to make, right? And instead he just ends up giving his life away or whatever. I can't say it was egregious, against FaZe or Nuke, but there was that one round where they were sort of wrapping Heaven, and FaZe smoked Windows and Mini, and Rain jumped, and he was the one making noise, but Frozen was with him and Brokey with the C4. They wanted to sort of split A in a way, and Nico heard Rain and just walked through the main smoke, and Frozen was waiting for him and just killed him freely. Like, this was one of the reset rounds late into the game, and it's like, I think if he's able to just that one last bit sort of put under control, I think that will be that's the final hurdle. Because then someone will say, yeah, but what about the Heroic game and when he had 7 3K rounds in the CT side? Yeah, but it's not, if you remember some of those, it's actually him playing relatively chill, and then just they were coming his way and he was able to connect on the kills and had like really good kills. And then a couple of times it's like, all right, this is like a sort of a 50-50 fight, maybe a 40-60 fight. I'm going to swing because I'm better and I'm going to get the frag. Like, those are fine. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just like when the pressure mounts and sort of you
playing
feel
ahead
like
on
you
a
have to
timing, or going for a fight that it isn't ready yet because they haven't done the fake, or they haven't put pressure elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm with
like
you.
something where you're just watching. It's like, this is not the play, you know. Like this is not going to work on this level of play. So, yeah, it was unfortunate. I think on Ancient, when you look at it, is like Kerrigan just going every single gun round, you know, in different ways and
Abusing
just finishing
balance,
round. And that's where also, you know, when someone like Nico, he even had good stats for that one, but he couldn't find too much impact because they're just, you know, he's always in retake or whatever. And a couple of times they won one half by on B. And that's where you see on the T side a couple of rounds that like G2 just usually would win, but they don't win. The one 4v3 where Kerrigan gets a double from long and they can't, you know, Monacy and I think it was Monacy and someone else like, you know, whatever, 2vx, like they can't do anything. And then it was the one with Monacy and Malbs in a 2v3, but where Malbs was on the flank and sort of saw a guy long, and then he went short.
Oh, yeah. I
the
think
guy's, like,
the
close
guy
to
he
K,
killed,
and-
he thought, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, there's no way that guy you saw was the guy you killed.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it just doesn't make any sense. But that also tells you
That's
a little
pressure.
bit about the panic, the pressure, and also Monacy looking like everywhere because I guess he heard the crowd and then he thought someone was behind, but actually crowd couldn't believe they didn't know about the long guy. So it's just one of those things where that's why FaZe is FaZe. And I did not believe, I have no shame in saying it, I thought like they were not even going to make the playoffs, really, you know. And then when they got to the playoffs, I thought they limped into the playoffs. I thought Vitality was going to put them out of their misery, especially after map 1. But that's the difference, is like if, and it was a very big if in this particular tournament, if they can unlock that, they have that fucking thing. That's the thing that FaZe has, is in those moments at the highest of pressure situations, like their players elevate their game. They don't crumble under pressure. It sort of strengthens them and they rise to it. And you have Kerrigan, who is, you can argue, the greatest IGL of all time, probably the greatest playoffs now, major playoffs, you know, big moment IGL that we've had, because whenever you watch them play, it's layered. It's like there's a game plan, there's conditioning, there's all this stuff that just makes it easier, and you can really see it on the server and sort of appreciate the beauty of it in a way.
Well, Rob certainly made things easier. What a time for him to come alive at this event. Like, from that Furia game to qualify on, the kid was just lights the fuck out. Like, that's going to make everything easier for you if you're FaZe, for sure.
That's the best he's played
help.
in a
But
long
any
time.
team, any team that's going to win the major, you know, is going to have some sick individual performances. Like, you're never going to have a team where it's like, oh yeah, they're just all sort of average. You know, even Navi winning and it sort of being a fluke, that like JL had sick fucking rounds. And you had Bit on Inferno on the final map just going like, so like that's Counter-Strike. That's how it has to be. Anyone who thinks otherwise is sort of like the Lulu.
Yeah, you
But this
couldn't
is-
win with just team-based Counter-Strike the whole time. It has to be something at some point. Sorry,
Yeah,
Jason.
but this is also the interesting thing about Spirit, because like you have that Herculean individual in Donk, but the reason they won this major is because Magic stepped up so much in this final. Like your kind of star player can only take you so far, and all of a sudden the conversation around Spirit kind of shifted. It felt like the later we got into the playoffs, where it was like, yeah, always going to be a lot of excitement on Donk, but all of a sudden the weaknesses we've seen out of Spirit for the past 6 months of like not having the supporting cast. Like, remember when they won Katowice, it was like, how deep does this roster go? Like, Magix is a really solid role player. Zontix, we don't really know much about him, but all of a sudden he's fucking crazy as well. Chopper's calling a good game. Shiro's op is chiming in when it needs to. But we haven't been able to talk about that, and then you get to the major playoffs, and all of a sudden Magix is there cranking out good performances. Zontix was having good performances as well through their run of the playoffs. And so all of a sudden you go back to that conversation of like, okay, now this whole team is performing deep into the roster. Shiro having good isolated maps as well. Like, all of a sudden it's not just the Donk show the way it's been in the past 5 months. And that's what propels Spirit to the top at the end of the day, is like everyone else on that team waking up and combining into the dog performances that are just there like clockwork.
But we're in a really competitive era of Counter-Strike, right? because like the conversation with the whole is like more big picture than just one team. So obviously Spirit like hit a nice peak to win this event, right? And I'm definitely not trying to take anything away from that at all. But we're in one of the most competitive years in Counter-Strike that I can possibly remember, because we came into this major, and at least as far as I was looking at it, there were 6 teams who truly had an opportunity to win it, and then Heroic actually threw their hat in the ring to potentially be that 7th team, right? Because all of the top names besides Na'Vi made the playoffs, and Na'Vi rocked up to Shanghai fucking a week too late, right? For whatever reason, they weren't playing their game. It wasn't as it should be. Like, they didn't look like they were mentally in it. And then finally in their last series against Heroic, it's like, oh shit, the players are here again. They're trying again. Like, the communication's there. And then they couldn't, like, there was some shit clutches played, and then they lost, and they didn't make it, right? But otherwise, in those playoffs, like there was a lot of hype around Mongols, and we'll get to that. But there was a lot of names that still could have had runs. Like, you look at the side of the bracket that Spirit came from, it's like, okay, well, I don't think Liquid would have made it, but maybe Maus could have got there, or Mongols could have continued to have the miracle run, for example. On the other side, it was like an absolute gauntlet with such big names down there, right? You had FaZe, G2, and Vitality, obviously, right? But at the same time, it's not anybody's, like, we are going to say at the end of this, oh, it was somebody's year, right? Or this was the best team, or these were the best players. But it wasn't a dominant year from anybody. Like, it was probably Navi's year, but at the end of the year with our most recent event, they weren't present. They weren't there. But it was very competitive. We had a lot of different trophy winners. We had only a couple of teams that won several big trophies. So I thought it was hard to call which is better. Like, I much prefer that, because we're going in and we're looking at all these different things. However, it does make it for conversations like this. It's like, oh, well, this was Spirit's event and they peaked. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess that is what happened, right? Like, the fact that FaZe made the final is telling of some of the issues going on, like, within G2, because Yanko was talking about G2 there and maybe more of the minutia. But, like, I look at that last series as well, and maybe the moment got to the better of some of those bigger players, especially Monacy Nico, knowing that Nico's going to be leaving and everything. Like, maybe that got to them and started to play a bit of a role. For Vitality, you saw Apex put that thing out on his Instagram story, and he was like, oh, it was pretty hard when, you don't really feel like a team for the last couple of months, which is obviously to do with Spinks. At the same time, it's like, Apex, bro, you've won a major before. You've won multiple majors before. Like, even if Spinks was out and you
Also,
don't get along...
As we saw in that Red Bull thing, that Vitality win in Paris wasn't exactly all fucking roses either, right? That team
is not roses.
That team felt pretty scattered as it was.
Still, the only team that ZywOo beat in the major playoffs is Cloud9 in Copenhagen. That's a crazy top stat. 10 or whatever, which is like, it's a nice one for the ZywOo haters to bring up. Obviously, they won other big tournaments and won other big playoff series, and he's played well. I think, man, I love Apex. I think he's a great IGL, but you look at that quarterfinal and Anubis, like the calling, like why was he calling? What was all the rush on their T side after being up 3-0? Because the first round they lose was actually 2 saved guns and 3 pistols or whatever, some saved guns and pistols, and it just ending rounds at like 1:15. 120, 1 minute mark, which I know people will say, well, 1 minute isn't super early, like a lot of teams do. That's like, yeah, sure, but I mean, when you're playing from ahead, one thing, you're playing Anubis, which actually, gives to the slow pace. Like, it's very difficult for the CTs. You can always count on them having to make a move, and then you can go to punish that. I really did feel like he sort of called FaZe back into that map, and things then spiraled a little bit out of control. Then you had Robs waking up and all these different guys having different moments and just FaZe Clan becoming FaZe Clan. But also, you look at the last couple of tournaments, sort of, that Vitality, and look at the series that they get eliminated. Like, it's not looking good for Apex in those series on an individual level, and sometimes on the way, let's say the T sides have looked at different times. And he is a guy that has these positions with more responsibility, not your typical IGL shit roles, right? But actually things like Yard on Nuke and so on. And he's been vocal, I think, maybe it was fall finals or something like that, where he was like, taking accountability, publicly saying, this one's on me, I play like shit, I called like shit, and that's all great. But he needs to sort of snap out of it, I feel like, with whoever comes to Vitality next, because it was one of the main issues why they've been losing. Spinks looked liberated in the second half of the year, probably knowing he was on his way out, and played with more balls and was more aggressive, which was great for him and great for the team. I think that was the issue with him before, where he's just way too passive sometimes, man. Especially on T side on his lurks, it's like nothing. There's nothing there. It's like a mini happy sort of. So yeah, we'll see what happens with them. But they have Flamesy, they have Zaiwu.
They have firepower. That's the problem. Like
a lot of it.
Whether or not it's all being used correctly is a different conversation. But and also interesting to see what type of player they get to replace Spinks within the team. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of names potentially available, but we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But it's very disappointing considering they went 3-0, 3-0, RMR and elimination stage. And I understand, right, the opponents. But the thing is, the way the seeding works, so the teams who win the games, they can. Like, people are like, oh, I hate the argument of you can only play who's in front of you. But they literally can only play who they get matched up against. That's not their fault. They did, however, not play up to their full capability against FaZe. And that's without a doubt.
I think the crazy thing is, like, with them, wasn't the stat going into the playoffs that, like, they'd been in China for, like, 25 days? And
28 days, and they played
28 days and played 4 days of Counter-Strike? Like,
Yeah.
That's actually that would actually piss me off. I think as a player, that's so mental that you can actually run a route like that where you're just not playing.
I went for breakfast. Well, as you do, multiple days when I went for breakfast, the Vitality guys were sitting at the table. Now, to be honest, Apex and Spinks were never there, but the other guys were, right? When I get there, I'm walking in. Flamesy, the little rambunctious kid that he is, he's like, hey, Winston Churchill. And I'm like, yeah, what's up, man? He's like, come take a seat. And we sit down and we're talking and shit. And they have a Aussie bloke who's their sports guy. His name's Jack. He's used to be a rugby player.
He's jacked.
Yeah, he's fucking big. And we're sitting there and Zaiwu's there, Flamesy's there, Mezzy's there, and we're just talking. We're just shooting the shit, like talking about anything randomly. He's like, you guys know how Flamesy is, right? But every time like China comes up, Jack goes, we love China. And everybody else at the table goes, yeah, we love China. I'm like, what the fuck is this about? And like, well, we've been here for so long. Like, we don't want to have like any negative dissent in the ranks about like how long we've been here. And like, we just say, yeah, we love China. Like, that's it. Like that. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Like, I get it. Like, you're mentally, you're playing a game, right? Like, I understand that, but it's important to do that. And because of the amount of downtime you've had, that like, yeah, we got a prac lined up against Atox. We meant to play against them yesterday, but they didn't have any time in the net cafe, so they couldn't play. And I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, what are we doing? Because like, obviously, you don't want to play against all the teams in the bracket and stuff. Yeah. But just the amount of time, the amount of time that they were iced out, they couldn't play. Like they weren't playing officials, so they were just playing pracs. And you can only play against other teams. And you're also like, yeah, you're kind of in like a boot camp environment, but it's for the major, and you're not getting reps and stuff in. So I imagine that's hard. But at the same time, you're not showing any tape. Like, you're not showing anything that you're working on or showing. If you win 2 best-of-1s and 2 best-of-3s, sorry, 4 best-of-1s and 2 best-of-3s, and you don't drop a map and they're not close, the only game that was closest against Furia, you're not having to go deep in the strat book. You're not having to show all of your maps. You're not having to do all those things, which I would imagine is a bit of a positive. But yeah, just didn't cut the mustard against FaZe.
You're not having to do anything with the pressure of the major being on your shoulders. Like, they never once had to feel any concern or worry by the fact that they just breezed through those opening and elimination stages.
I know they wanted revenge against FaZe because FaZe knocked them out of Copenhagen, so that was something that they were like was big on their like list of things to do. Yeah, well, hey, didn't they? Maybe like I know this sounds crazy. Maybe they're expecting FaZe to go to Dust 2, but even still, like, you only have to prepare for 4 maps in a best-of-3 series, right? Like, if you have a pretty good idea of how the video is going to go, you don't have to prepare for 4 maps. So if you weren't prepared for Anubis, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that was a good veto, a good decision from Carrigan, though, like, to put them on something that's more uncomfortable and they might sort of crumble if things start going south, and that's exactly what happened, really, in a way.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I was just going to say, to go to an easier topic, Liquid in playoffs looked like exactly about what you'd expect. Kind of meandered into the playoffs. Certainly gave no signs throughout their entire run that this was a Liquid that was going to hit a nice peak. And just kind of got beat up in a way in their series against Spirit.
I think they were all right. I had them in my pick'ems. I had the Liquid beating Spirit. Yeah, and I think they had their chances to win that game, but I think sort of, as you alluded to it a little bit, it's just the departments in which they were lacking still just a tiny bit that sort of, in a game like that, against a team like Spirit and a player like Donk, is going to cost you the game. They had they had a 4v3 on Anubis on T side. There was a lot of time left into the round. They didn't like.
They
it was
blind called into a stack.
Yeah, they blind called into a blind called B split where there was a stack and Dong had a saved AK, and then he got the 4 more kills and aced them. Right, like that's just not a good call. Like you need to send a scout somewhere, or you need to do it differently, right? Like that's just a bad call. Like sure, Dong did a good job of getting it, but they weren't even that difficult kills to get. It was mostly like easy kills for him, like teammates
fair.
baiting for him, right? You had that. There was one. I mean, now it was a while ago, so I don't remember what else was there on.
They lost to
Anubis.
1v2 on the B side, on the A side even, but that's fine. Like it was just ultimate left against 2, and he killed 1, and then Shiro traded. But there was another bad round that they lost. They lost like several bad rounds in that Anubis game, which was their pick.
Yeah, and then
Dust 2
then
happened.
you also had on Dust 2. It was a 13-11 game where they lose like the second round, where again they don't take they don't take cat control, right? As T and just go sort of into a B split again, kind of blindly. So a couple of mistakes like that were then once they actually started playing well and Yekindar picked up a little bit, all of a sudden, wow, they're coming back, and then at the very final round, it's kind of one duel like with Yekindar on long that he loses the duel against an MP9. Right, and that was against a sort of a weak buy, right? Like
4 MP9s, 1 M4.
Yeah, and they lose that round and could have taken it to OT. So it's like there was good stuff there, but it just wasn't on a consistent enough level to be able to beat Spirit, which is, sucks for Team Liquid, but on the other side, kind of gives you hope that with some extra time and them ironing out this stuff, Twist picking up a little bit. He also had a poor individual map on Anubis himself. So if that picks up a little bit, all of a sudden, I mean, they're right there, man. They're not far away.
You're believing in this Liquid lineup?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Depends on what you
better than the last one.
I still think they should look to upgrade on Yekindar, right? I still think they should try and get some other space creator rifler. I don't know. It's kind of tough because we were just talking about FaZe and how you want like veterans and you want like experienced guys who've done it before. And then, we were talking before about Liquid and who they could get potentially, right? Like, you could, and then you get Exertion, right? But what's he doing in these big games? He's also sort of shitting the bed. Right? Like, so, and that's the thing that you need to think about is like, you're not, the goal you want to reach is winning tournaments, right? So you don't need a guy who's going to mop up in groups. Like, sure, that's also important to get to the playoffs. But you need guys who are going to do it in the big games when the spotlight is on. And I don't know what the issue is necessarily with Exertion or some of the mouse guys, because he has like a good head on his shoulders when you talk to him or when he talks in interviews.
All of them do.
Yeah, it's very mature, right? So it's sort of just what's holding you all back then?
It's the reference, Yanko, of going into the bathroom, right?
Yeah,
in a public bathroom, right? And you're a little bit shy. You can't use the urinal if there's another man standing next to you. You have to go into a stall where you have the safety, right? And that's it. That's it. It's stage fright. Can't take a piss under pressure. That's it.
All right.
That's it.
Yeah,
Jason, I don't know about you, man, but the round in the Liquid series that made me the saddest was when Shiro saved an AWP. Spirit took a timeout. Donk bought an AK. Someone had dual Berettas. The other two had Glocks. They'd done what they had to do. They had broken Spirit. Spirit were essentially on, like, I guess we'll call it a half buy, right?
Yeah.
But it was like they'd done it. They'd broken the finances. And then for some reason, Liquid think it's a good idea, knowing there's an AWP in the server, to try and set Ultima up for a pick. They nade open the mid-door smoke so he can look for a fight with the AWP. You're against a saved AWP, and you don't know what else is being purchased.
God, that's the Liquid.
Why are you breaking the smoke, searching for a fight? Why are you not just playing 3-2? Why are you not just locking down B? Why are you picking middle against a saved AWP? if he just played towards car or mid long, like game helper, and he had the AWP, Shiro would have baited 3 of his teammates. He probably would have got a couple of kills, and they probably win the round. But instead, it's like, oh, let's get Ultimate's confidence up. Let's break the mid smoke against one saved AWP that we know is a saved AWP. It's like, I get it. You want to make plays and you want to look sick. You look fucking dumb. And then you save 4v5 against 2 Glocks, a pair of dual Bretters, an AWP, and an AK. You fucking idiots.
That was super fucking painful, though. Like, one kill like that, and then you go on. And that was the 13-11 Dust 2 game. Like, I was watching that. I was like, bro, this is like fucking horror. You can't. And thank you, Chad, because you reminded me on one thing that I think is the biggest problem for Liquid is their CT sides. They do way too many setups. Like, they do way too many. Like,
they make a lot of plays. Usually with Yakinder.
They need to play more default, man, because that's what they did in that round. Ultimate dies. Then they played too long, right? Too long, 2B. Spirit goes out short, and that's it. The round is over. Like, I know it's hard, like, in that situation. Like, you could either play 3A and then cover both long and short, or, you know, play for short, not play. You can't. It's difficult with only 2 guys, is what I'm saying, to play for both long and short. But doesn't even matter that particular round. Just in general, right? You can see how teams have figured it out a little bit.
Hold up a second. You kill the AWP, right, on Dust 2. Where now becomes your easiest choke point as a T? Short A.
Go out cat, yeah.
So why did Liquid hedge long?
It's always, you wonder if these, sometimes guys try to be like a little bit too smart or overthinking. Okay, they know
put
that.
Twist at mid-long with a rifle. He's still going to blow off 2 cunts' heads. Like, Twist has, if he backs himself, some of the best aim in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's not the optimal fight, but I'd still prefer that than a fucking 4-man save. Anyway, I'm done. I'm over it. I'm over it.
You want to know what round tilted me in that game, in the Liquid game, was the very last round of regulation on Dust 2. I've been even watching it back right now just to get extra tilted for this little segment. I mean, it has like complete mid control, double doors smoked off. You have 1 lurking long on the T side, Liquid's on the T side. 1 in lower tunnels watching for the B push. 3 players controlling mid, gonna go up catwalk. And Yakinder, like 20 seconds in advance, makes the play out long early as like the solo man.
In his defense, he was going out long and entering every round. But the thing that's the most annoying about that is if you watch it, if you look at it, he does, like, if any normal human being was playing, he would have seen Magics on the corner. But because his eyeballs are literally in the screen, he didn't.
They got closer.
It was late reaction. It did. It's dumb. But whatever.
It's gotten closer. I don't know how it's gotten closer. But yeah, when you're walking out long as the instigator of a 5-on-5 with like 55 seconds left, and it's you get outdueled by an MP9 at the corner when you have an AK-47. It's like, how is that the opening gambit to this round? How is that Liquid
Jason,
making a comeback?
The strap book's out the window at that point. And not just because it's the last round, because they were like, what was the score? 12-6?
When they started the comeback,
12-5? They were in the bin.
I think.
They were in the bin. At that point, like, the calling, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's a lot more free-flowing. Like, it's
you're only getting back into that game with but that's my problem is, like, why is that the play being made on the map, though, at that point?
I guess
like,
just
even as
it's
an
the
individual
bias
decision.
of it working
because that's
time
where
and
you
time.
have the advantage. You know, they're on a shit buy and they didn't come up close. So anytime like you can get long, he got it basically
He's
for
clearing
free.
pit side.
And he just lost a duel against an MP9. Like that's not a bad play. That's not a bad
There's no
setup.
trade,
That's just
though.
a guy not being able to like get
it.
the kill.
I think
Like,
this is a
and he
horrible
was caught
play.
a little bit. Like he wasn't holding from door anymore. He was like sort of trying to advance. And then the guy swung and he lost the fight to an MP9. Like, yeah, and like Chad said, he was finding a lot of entries there in previous rounds. So it's like, if he got that kill, you would be saying, wow, your Kinder's so sick. Liquid came back thanks to Kinder, right? Like, don't just play the outcome, Jason.
No, I'm not. I actually think that would have been a bad play even if he won that fight. Like, I still think it's insane to have your solo long player make the initiated contact.
Like, held the corner from door.
Or wait for your 3 players to take catwalk like a normal long lurk, and then you play the late round.
But he has long. He
doesn't have long.
Had it.
No, he didn't.
Well,
I'm watching it right now. He doesn't have long. He's stepping out the double doors.
He didn't know that pit side was clear. He was clearing pit side.
He knew that what? Or
he didn't know pit side was clear. He was clearing pit side. He was looking pit side. That's why he got caught.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah, I
why
remember
would he
it
be looking
badly.
pit side, right?
He
Like,
walked
would
out
just be looking corner.
after a cave smoke, and he was clearing pit, and then Magix showed up. They came for like a mid-round late
Yeah.
clear of long.
The thing is, though,
Okay,
the
it
fact
was
that
smoked at the
Spirit
start.
Spirit
So he
won
didn't
both
know. I thought
of
he
those
was there
Dust
from
2
the start.
games, 13-11. And both of them, the opponents like FaZe and Liquid both started like crazy comebacks.
Yeah.
Like,
All right,
you know,
I get what you're saying now, Jason. Yeah, he should have just like sort of.
you've
It
been
doesn't make
vindicated,
sense.
Jason. Just like all
Thank God.
American viewers and listeners.
I remember.
We love all
I
of our
remembered it
Americans.
differently. I thought he had like vision from the start of the round, then he just decided to move at some point.
No, he just went out, which was like, I was watching that. I was like, this is gonna go horribly. Oh, anyways, what else happened from the anything else cool from the playoff bracket that you guys enjoyed?
Mouse shit the bed.
Mongols. We
Fine.
haven't touched on Mongols at all yet.
Not really a lot to say. I
People
think we
were
should
crazy,
be happy.
bro. Like I don't know why people thought like
Recency
the
bias,
Mongols-
bro. That's it.
like it's wild. Like they played the best CS that any team from Asia has ever played, no doubt about that. But they were going up against Mouse. I mean, if they're going up against Liquid, I'd probably sort of give it to
Yeah,
them
you back them.
to run that hot hand. But you know, Mouse has broken hearts before of people who are like more experienced on the and sure, they don't do it. This is the thing with Mouse. They don't choke at the start of the bracket. You know, they don't choke in the
Just the deeper they
quarterfinal.
get.
They choke like deeper on, you know, depending on the opponent. Like Mouse was not going to lose to the Mongols, man. And look how like even that they had that mad comeback on map 1. So Mongols had everything going their way, and they still couldn't like close out. Sanzu choked, right? Which is again not shocking. He's what, 18 years old, 19 years old,
Yeah.
right? Like that team is super young. It's the youngest team ever. I think for me the most positive thing is just Mzinho, because I remember when he first played,
Yeah,
Cut
he
into
was
some
he was the
tournaments,
yeah.
bedwetter. Yeah,
he was pretty lost and you
Yeah.
know didn't know what he was doing really, and he's just evolved so much as a player where now he's like their most solid guy, arguably.
910's great as well. I really like watching 910 AWP. He's very confident
fun.
with it, and he hits
Yeah.
some really nice shots. Like he's precise. He's fun to watch. It's more well-rounded of a team now.
I don't know-
Senzu was the biggest disappearance.
I don't know how it's going to work in the next major cycle, but I mean they also got an elimination stage spot for the
Yeah.
Asian region. So that's while NA got one back with Liquid, so Europe doesn't have 8 anymore. They're back to having 6.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What do you
Suck on
guys?
that, Europeans?
What do you guys make of? Sorry, you go for it.
No, I was going to say like for sort of, well, where were you gonna go?
I was gonna not be on Mongols.
Not on Mongols?
Not on Mongols.
No, me neither. But where are we going?
I was gonna go to the winning moment
All right,
Go-
then do that.
because I spoke about
Mine
this
is
on-
like 3 steps ahead. So
Okay. I spoke about this on HTV Confirmed because I saw some like discourse on Reddit and like the HTV forums and stuff because I love reading those things. They make me feel really good and it's amazing dialogue. But the way like Donk walking over and waiting while FaZe, especially Carrigan and Rain, crushed after their 4th major, 3rd defeat. Like, and Donk just like walks over. I don't think people liked his strut necessarily, but people were like, oh, you know, what's he doing? Like, he doesn't understand like social cues and shit. Like, why does he walk straight over? Like, this is evil. This isn't. And, like, I just took it as he was like, he's a sportsman, and the first thing you do after a match is over is you shake hands. Like,
Yeah.
that's what you do.
Yeah.
You go, all right, well, yeah, we won. You're like, fuck yeah, let's go shake hands. Like, that's how I would operate.
bro, it's just crazy, like these standards that people hold like a 17-year-old kid to, you know. For me, Donk is literally what we were when we started playing like competitive and went to like local lands, right? And your goal was just to demolish the other team, yell in their face, sort of humiliate them during the game, and then shake hands after the game, all still mates, right? The usual. The only difference is he's doing it on the fucking biggest of stages, right? In his first year in Tier 1 and doing it on that level. But his attitude is the same. His approach is the same. He doesn't give a fuck, bro, about being the number 1 player in the world, about this, about that. He just wants to beat every single opponent he plays against. And that's all there is to it. Like, he doesn't care about interviews. He doesn't care about fame. He doesn't care about whatever. It's all just a chore to him. He just wants to play Counter-Strike, sort of, and own people. And that's awesome. And that's like people expecting like I don't know what from him. Like that's in your head. Like he doesn't have to do any of that shit. I don't think he was disrespectful. He was probably a little He was probably a little sort of also in himself. Can you imagine? I mean, also, do you remember that fucking last map?
Yeah.
Do you remember the 2v4 round right before the last round? Maybe some of the crazy shit. I'm telling you, Spirit was lucky that Halley was out of timeouts because he would have called one and they would have lost. Like it would have went to OT. Right?
I'm surprised
like this
Neo
way,
didn't call one
somehow-
after they won that round.
They somehow, why would he? They were on a roll. Like somehow they fumbled into winning that last round. Kind of. Like B split, frozen, choked.
Did you
last
see the
map, and
video
it
of
was over.
Brokey missing the smoke?
I did see
No.
it, yeah.
So I couldn't talk about it during the cast, obviously. Like, I'm not going to sit there and go, well, actually, Alex, Brokey missed the tunnels smoke. But, like, and actually somebody, Vu did a video, which is great, because during HTV Confirmed the other night, I said, I haven't seen a video, can someone make one? And then Vu made one. I don't know if he did that because I said that. Shout out to Vu if he did.
It's a gross miss. It is a disgusting video.
But I saw, Jason, your
I saw
favorite
it now.
person, James Bardolph, also known as Harry Jr. or Senior. It really
Naturally,
depends
yeah.
on how you want to frame him.
Yeah.
He retweeted from another gentleman. I have to find it. I don't even know what Bardolph's Twitter is.
I haven't followed him. I don't have it for you.
Wow, Jason, how come he didn't make a thread about that?
I don't know. I
Shout out
guess
to
some people just get away with things.
Yeah, I guess. That must be nice. The guy who makes the YPRAC maps, he did a video retweeting the video Vu did and said, your grenades will bend if you start moving within approximately 8 ticks after releasing it.
I saw that on Reddit just now, and I saw the Woo video.
Wait, say that again. Your smoke will curve.
Your grenade will bend if you start moving within approximately 8 ticks after releasing it.
Oh,
So that's what happened to Brokey.
I don't like that.
Now, look, if it went tunnels, there was nobody tunnels. But when they were coming through doors, they had less room to work with because the smoke landed just outside the doors. So they were kind of coming through a gray screen, not really, but kind of. Like it definitely made
Just enough to throw you off.
and you had to worry about tunnels. Whereas before, if it was smoke, the guy would have had to push through, right? They also threw the second smoke, which is the one that landed mid-sight. Oh, dude, but also like Frozen, he played like shit. Just to
Yeah.
shout out to that one
Yeah.
time, his aim looked like mine. Like, and that's your aim can't look like mine. I'm 35.
No, that's
He
weird.
choked that last map too. It feels like.
Yeah, like he was good on Ancient, but the last map he definitely wasn't there. Second major final, second loss. That's gonna suck. Sad.
Yeah,
Man.
that one does hurt. Very
Yeah,
sad.
especially. I mean, oh man, when it got to Kerrigan after that, you
Oh.
were just. Fuck,
Yo,
bro, that
the-
was just pain.
The donk walk across the stage, though, the reason I found that so funny is because that's what he looks like walking around the hotel. Like when you
Yeah,
see him
yeah,
like at
yeah.
events, like walking through it, like just to go to the prac room or just to get like a fucking, I don't know, a Shirley Temple at the bar. He's doing
He's
his little
17.
fucking swag walk. He's doing it. It's crazy. It's fucking hilarious.
It's like
He's-
Conor McGregor, but
I
he's
know.
like gangly. Like for a
He's got-
small guy, how's he so
Yeah,
lanky?
He's got long ass limbs, but he is doing his swag walk everywhere he goes. It's just the way the guy moves. Did you see that video this morning of like I was cracking up. The Spirits sports site calming down Shiro after the second
I
lap
haven't
of the
watched
final.
it yet. I haven't watched it.
It's so funny because he's just like coming back to the prac room and he's like, "Oh, do we have bananas? Do we have any banana? I need chocolate. I need chocolate." And I'm just like imagining like some like sweaty boxer just be like, "Oh, cut me, Mick." But it's just Shiro coming in like, "I need chocolate. I need chocolate and bananas." I was just fucking dying, and they're just sat down having a huddle with him. It's great. It's just good television.
I saw a part of the video where they're in the shuttle on the way home after they had won. And Donk goes, "We won Bet Boom Dacha and a major in a year. Nobody will ever top that." So this kid's got a sense of humor, man. And then he's like, "I want McDonald's." And then their manager next to him is like, "Oh, you want nuggets and fries?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Fucking hell." Like, take him out for a Happy Meal, put him on the slide. Like, what are we talking
Get him in the
about?
ball pit. Have a great time. You guys earned it.
It's like, Jason, we're double his age.
I
Like,
know.
we're more than
it's-
double his age.
It's so mental. It's so mental to think about. And they're still
crazy.
eating fast food to celebrate. Just like we
we
did.
haven't even like really talked about him yet in this episode
Phase?
that much. No,
Spirit?
Donk.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
Donk. How
Youngest
fucking
player
crazy
ever.
is he?
To win a major and MVP.
He ended dust. We're talking about all these different guys choking, like Frozen, Nico doing a little bit too blah blah blah. And this kid shows up, decider of the grand final, 30 and 14, 117 ADR, 1.98 rating in the in the final map. I mean, it's just unreal how dominant he is. And I know the highest ever he shares with Nico, like the 170 rating on a S tier LAN. But I think he definitely clears Nico because Nico's was in Cologne, it was in New York,
New York.
it was fewer maps, right, and all of that. Donks was in Katowice, more maps in the playoffs, a best of 5 grand final. Feels like, yes, statistically it's the same number, but I think Donks, it was more difficult to achieve. It's always the same thing. It's like it's more difficult to have a high rating over more maps, right, over a larger sample size. So what he was able to achieve, it's like this game has not seen it in its 25-year-long history, man. It's just so crazy. And what I love the most is his attitude, that he doesn't care about like nothing. He just wants to he just plays and runs and shoots and fucks. That's it. And eats fucking nuggets and fries. Way to go, bro.
Good for him.
Yeah. I think the fact that he's likely to be the best player this year and he's a
Hopefully we lose
rifler,
Chad.
right? Like, think
So
about...
we lost Chad.
Yeah.
Hello?
Well, I guess we'll have to.
There he is. He's back. Kind of.
So-
There he is. He's
you're
definitely
back.
back now. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
So my internet connection is 5G, not from my phone. Like, I actually have a box that sits there. And I was told I'm in a very good connection point. And none of my tenants, while I've been away, have complained about the internet. All right, guys? So I just want you to know that it's...
Tenants? What do you mean? Do you own the whole building now? When did that happen?
I own this apartment, and
Okay.
I rent it out when I'm away.
Nice.
So, yeah, I've had some tenants, Jason. Not just one,
Tenants. A couple of them.
multiple. All right?
Good for you.
I was saying, before you two rudely complained about the internet connection, that the fact that he's a rifler is the most exciting part, because he'll be the first #1 player in the world who's a
Since-
rifler since what, like, would it be Cold Zero?
I guess it would have to be, yeah.
Yeah. So that's been 8 years.
Yeah, that's cool. Dude, he's incredible. I don't really have a whole lot to build off of it.
I was saying-
it's incredible what he's been able to do all year long, and then to this kind of a performance at the major. I think, no doubt, he's got to be the #1 player of the year.
Yeah. That's not even a
Not even a
conversation
doubt anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, bro, these other dudes should giving it, like, Donk should get 70% of the prize pool, and the rest of them should split the 30%, bro. It's like that's how much he's carrying this team. Like, it's actually insane. Without him,
I wish I knew how much he
they
got
wouldn't
paid.
be a playoff team. Like, without him, I don't know if they make it out of the RMR if they don't have like a really good player in that.
How much
position,
money
like-
you reckon he gets as a salary a month?
Dude, I bet he's on a rookie contract still.
Yeah,
I reckon
has,
he
like-
probably gets no more than 5,000 euros.
Yeah,
Probably
but
not.
Not more.
I
than
bet
that.
his
so
contract isn't even set up properly to give him the amount of prize money he probably deserves.
But here's the problem, and well, no, for prize money, I feel like it's fine. Like they get
80% normally for the team, right?
or more for bigger orgs. it's
Yeah, but
even
he's coming
more,
off the academy contract. You never fucking know with that shit.
Well, I mean, the cut for the players is the same, regardless of who the players on the team are. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, but I think hopefully Spirit doesn't make the mistake that some orgs have made in the past, where they do end up getting a great player on a rookie contract, and then they don't offer him sort of one, even though he still has a lot of years remaining on his rookie deal, because it is kind of crazy that Donk would continue on the same contract into next year. Like, that's just egregious if you're Spirit.
Yeah, you'd hope
in
they
a way,
you'd hope they
like
treat
at
it
least if you bumped him from 5 to 10, he's still severely underpaid. But at least, you've done something, you've made an effort, right? Like you've
Maybe he's paid really well as well. I'm sorry, Spirit, if you guys pay him really
Yeah.
well. Maybe you did after they won Katowice, but I would assume, right, based off of the way things go. But maybe we're wrong.
yeah.
It's okay to
Well,
be wrong.
Also, I guess this is a little bit connected, and all again, we'll move into all the roster stuff, I guess now. But one of the things that that when we talk about do you cut Magix, what do you do, blah 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 blah, is also you have this Kyosuke kid on your academy team. It's like, what are you going to do? You know, like
Sell him?
you either sell him or elevate him into the main squad. But then you look what Navi did with Monesi, and you know, I'm sure they like in the end it turned out they would have been better off if they kept him, right? Instead of that, and it's different because it's an offer. You can't have two of those on your team, so one had to go. So you can understand their decision at the time. But here you can have both of them on your team.
True.
Right? And also, yeah, roles do matter, but you can't tell me a 17-year-old can't sort of adjust his, you know, he can only do this one. Like, teach him to do something else, right? And I'm not saying teach a passive player to be aggressive. It's just like he doesn't have to play the exact same position on every map, right? As long as it fits his personality, like we were talking about in the Twists episode, right? Like, you can't make a guy who's super erratic and active, you can't put him as an anchor. But
Kyosuke's only 16.
16.
God damn, man. 16.
But I think I'm with you because I think you absolutely do that. That's kind of the point I brought up at the start of talking about Spirit. Is like, I know it's a weird situation after they just win a major.
Anybody.
Yeah, but I almost think if next year starts out slow, I think you pull the trigger on it quick. Like, if you're not going to do it now, fine, you just won the major. But if you look at it and you say, if you have any faith in Kyosuke at this point, and I haven't watched any of his demos or anything like that yet, but if you have faith that he's going to turn into something special, I almost think you play for the amount of skill and you just get a second 16-year-old badass in the roster and you build that up, and that becomes your next future to establish a dynasty, an era, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and say we now have two of the youngest, most potential, most incredible riflers within this team. We have, you know, an Opper who's been great historically in the past. We have all the things we need to continue this. I don't think Shiro at the moment is any like, you know, mind-blowing Opper or anything like that.
But
but
you think he's a top 5 player in the world?
No, I think I would listen.
He's gonna be one for like
No,
what,
he's
the
not.
3rd year in a row.
No, he's not.
Shiro's not gonna be number 5 on HLTV this year.
No.
Well, what do you got? You got Donk, then Monesi, then
Monesi,
Zywoo, then what? Nico, 4th?
I think you'd put Nico in the top 5.
But then who do you have after Nico? I guess is kind of Yanko's point.
I'd have to look through it in more detail, but I think there's a couple people you could put. You could probably put like a Yimfat there. No.
Nah. They
You
didn't
don't think he was
achieve
good
enough.
enough?
They didn't achieve enough. You have to look at teams who achieve something, right?
Yeah, but this is always
you
my
could
question.
argue
If we're going to go into the top 20,
player.
yeah, okay. I mean, JL wouldn't be a terrible shout. It depends on.
JL
Again, I
shot
haven't
the
looked
bed,
at
though.
when they picked up throughout the year, but Ima and Bit had really good years after the major, after the Copenhagen
Ima was
major.
too bad.
Forward.
He was too.
Ima might
he was
not be
too
in
mid.
top 20 at all.
Yeah, Ima was too
not
mid.
gonna be in the top 20.
Like
Okay.
he really struggled.
I mean, there's got to be someone else you can find other than Shiro, because I really didn't sense his presence too much in the Spirit team all year.
Of course, we'll get into that.
I think that's
Yeah,
Yanko's
more.
point.
But
Unfortunately,
I'm saying also Spirit have this benefit with this thing that the kids on the academy team, they can literally just promote him at any point. So maybe if you're Spirit, you feel like, listen, Magix, you did match the number of kills, even though half of them were anti-equal kills. Well, maybe not half, but you know, of Donk in the grand final. So that buys you an extra 3 months or an extra season, and let's see if you can do a little bit more of that in the future, and then you retain your spot on the team, right? But if not, then yeah, they just promote the kid and easy peasy. I have to say also, I'm happy with, I was a little bit worried like that, I don't know, Kerrigan just might announce his retirement after the major, like if they lost or something. And
do you think?
I don't know. He is like 34, right? And things have been rough lately for him with FaZe and personal life too. So I don't know. It was like, and there were these rumors about whether him and Rain are gonna be on FaZe or what's gonna happen, like what roster changes are they going to make, and so on and so forth. So I'm just gonna say I'm super happy that he said, you know, there'll be more chances to come. Like his tweets and everything he was alluding to, obviously still competing and still fighting, and I'm happy for it. I think he can definitely still do it, no doubt about it. But I don't know if it's going to be in FaZe. I definitely don't think it's going to be with this lineup of FaZe. Like either he's going to go somewhere or he'll stay, and there will be roster changes for FaZe.
According to Striker, a lot of these changes were predicated on Monesi going to Falcons, which is apparently not happening anymore. And the reason for that is like Jimmy was going to go if Mondesi was going to go, but now Jimmy's not going to go apparently. So now it's just Nico and Magisk, right? And then it kind of keeps everybody where they are. But if Spinks is leaving Vitality, which I think is a fair, especially with Apex's Instagram story, then he has to go somewhere. So like Spinks into FaZe, like Rops, or Spinks into G2. Like Rops could go to Vitality. Like there is potential for movement. I'm just curious as to where that movement will be. And I think right now things are still definitely getting worked out. Like I don't know where everything's going to land by any stretch of the imagination. I'm kind of just talking based off of what I was discussing the other day. I was expecting an action-packed off-season, and I still kind of hope it goes that way because I would like to see some changes.
It will be, right? Like you just listed off a bunch of high-profile ones, but it always like happens really quickly after the first move is made. Like, right? Like I feel like
dominoes
that first,
fall, yeah.
Yeah, like, as soon as that first roster change is made and a spot is opened up, that's when teams start getting way more aggressive about making things happen. So then it's kind of like that first one is going to be the bell that dings to start the round, and then everyone's going to be swiftly moving to kind of capitalize on who's available out there. Yeah. I love the quote, the interview from Jimmy during the major where he was just like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go, but any option I have is really good for me, so I'm just chilling. And it's like, yeah, that's a fair point. Jimmy
had a bad major playoffs for sure. He didn't look, but at the same time, he's only 18 as well, right? So I hope we see more Jimmy because I think just talking to the kid, he seems like a good kid. And he plays some good CS as well.
And he plays so impactful for the spots on CT sides and the roles that he has on T side. Like he finds a way to be like really fucking impactful. Yeah, he's like a finished NAF.
Yeah, and I think that like if he can be on any of these top teams for sure because he's so young and he can add a lot of impact. I think it would be like, I'm not saying he can't stay on Mouse, he can stay on Mouse, right? But I think Mouse have other issues. Like Mouse, I don't know how Mouse get past their problem. Yanko could probably, I know he loves talking about this, talk some more about their facility with the speakers because I'm sure that'll make a big difference. Can we talk about, I want to make sure we talk about this before we finish, and I know that we're an hour 20 in and maybe we keep going for 40 minutes more, I don't know. But the one that we probably have to talk about today, and I don't like talking about things traditionally as soon as they happen. In my older age, I have been less knee-jerky because I don't feel that you have all the information when you react immediately. I feel that you kind of need to let things settle and get the full picture and full information and then kind of have a conversation or make a decision or make an opinion about these things. But obviously it's to do with the Blast Bounty invitations, right? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like not a fun or easy topic because it's very divisive within our community. But I think we need to talk. Obviously, this is to do with Imperial female. That's what they're called, right? Just sort of, I will refer to them as women, but they're called Imperial female. And them being invited. Well, Yanko, you never know these days, mate.
Right.
You've got to look at this invitation based off of the VRS, right? So just to get everybody up to speed, in case you're just joining us, and maybe you haven't been watching Counter-Strike, you don't know what's happening in 2025. The Valve regional standings will be used to determine the invitations for the events that are Tier 1 events and Tier 2, but of a different ranking point, for 2025 and onwards. So where you're placed within the rankings will determine if you're eligible to be invited to tournaments. And the Imperial female team were invited to the Blast Bounty event, and I'm curious to see as well if maybe they'll be invited to Katowice. And they were invited to that event, and they accepted the invite. Now, there's a few things that we need to establish here before we can get stuck in, and we should probably divide certain points. So the first point is, let's start with this. Okay, so in the Counter-Strike circuit, there are women exclusive tournaments. There are no men exclusive tournaments. There are tournaments for everybody, and then there are tournaments for women only, right? Am I correct, gentlemen, in that?
You're correct in that.
Okay, just want to make sure.
You are, in fact, correct.
And the way that Imperial Female collected their points for the Valve ranking system, Valve regional standings, were by playing in women-only tournaments. And they were able to accrue, because we know it's based on prize money, or not exclusively, but it is a big part of it, accrue enough of the necessary ranking points to be in the top 32 teams to be invited to the Blast Bounty event. Now, the first point of all of this is that this should never have been allowed in the regional standings. So this is a Valve shortcoming. This is their fuck up, exclusively their fuck up. Whether it was brought to their attention or not, or it was just an oversight, it doesn't really matter because the impact is going to be felt going into this first tournament of the new circuit. They should never have been able to be ranked that way because the entire point of the change of philosophy for 2025 and onwards is based off the idea of not having partner tournaments, which essentially that's what the women's circuit is. Like, it's not partnered, but it's exclusive to women only. Women are the only ones who can play in that. Men cannot go and play in that tournament, whereas women have the opportunity and ability to play in every other tournament that's out there if they're good enough to qualify, right? So the money that they earned really shouldn't have been contributing to the Valve regional standings. And for next year, it won't be an impact because the type of tournaments that they will be playing in as their own circuit won't be considered tier 1 events. So they will not be contributing to the regional standings in the same way that it did for this year. So we have that first issue that's popped up. And that issue is a shame that it happened and that Valve didn't address it before we got to this point. Because that in itself, if we're just looking at Counter-Strike players, is unfair. That there was one thing where it could only be exclusively one group of people could play and earn points, but the whole body of people couldn't. And the whole point of the rankings was so everybody could and then try and qualify. And we didn't get that. So that right there really sucks. And also it's kind of made me realize that the point I just made at the start of this whole dialogue about, wanting to sit and wait and then express my opinion after a certain amount of time, it's going to have to change because I'm going to have to go back to the version of Chad that existed before I was berated off the internet by one of our colleagues for working for a certain company that everybody else does. So I'm going to have to go back to the version of me that makes some noise and says some things and comes out and gets vocal, because the only way we're going to be able to police these shortcomings in the future is by making noise and by having sensible dialogues as opposed to not having these conversations. That's the first point, and I would love to take any points from you guys on what I've stated just here and see if you agree, disagree on that, and then we'll continue into the other stuff after.
I agree, but there's two things. I think one, there was actually two women's teams that were able to be invited to this event. The other one was Furia, and because Furia accepted the invite, you can only have one team per organization. So the Furia female team had to actually decline it. So there could have been two. And the other thing is, did you say that this issue is already kind of in a way fixed for the next year and the next round of rankings because they can't gain the points this way?
You can't have exclusive tournaments to one group of people that would then play into the regional standings. The whole point
this is a problem of the transition of the ranking to the VRS.
Exactly. Okay. And it's a pretty ridiculous problem when you think about it, because it was pointed out, and I will put my hand up. I was one of those idiots who went, well, yeah, I can see this is happening, and I can see it in the rankings. But surely Valve are going to go, well, this doesn't count. But
there's your first mistake. Your first mistake.
And that's why I said I have to return to being a vocal member of the community.
I mean, we all kind of called this out when these rankings came in, and we saw how much impact prize money was going to have, that it was going to create some wonky situations. This is obviously one of them. But I mean, as a basic premise, I'm with you. If your tournament circuit is isolated and kind of closed off to the rest of the scene, then you shouldn't be able to climb the rankings in this fashion.
Yes. So this is our initial issue.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, obviously, here's the thing, right? Ultimately, it's on Valve, but there's a reason why they were staying away from anything tournament circuit related for forever, right? Because what did they used to say is we're not tournament organizers, we're game developers. We don't know about organizing a tournament but they realized they need to have a more hands-on approach, slightly more hands-on approach, with the changes they wanted to the circuit. They needed to introduce their ranking so they could get rid of the RMRs and this stuff, and it made more sense over the course of a year. But they're not gonna, it's not gonna be perfect from the get-go. There are going to be kinks like this, and I think you nailed it, Chad, with the fact that once tournaments start being ranked next year, like they will, then the female-only tournaments will be unranked, right? Like they won't be able to accrue points in the same way by playing in those, and this situation probably can't happen from next year on. Now, it has happened now, and Blast Bounty is going to be the first tournament of next year. So the worrying thing for me is that this will just be a net negative for female CS. Like it will be another hit on female CS because there is a good enough chance that they'll play in the tournament. They'll get
destroyed
beaten heavily by whoever they go up against, and it'll be like, there you go. They don't belong with it. They can't play. It's like all this shit that's like not necessarily true, but it's also true that they're not on the level of some of these other teams that are going to be in the tournament. Now, what was going through my head initially was they should have declined the invite.
I thought the same thing.
They should have declined. They should have declined the invite because it is a little bit of a sort of a loophole that they got to be in that position and they could play in it. That's my
Jason,
initial way of thinking.
explain why you don't think they should have.
Can I finish?
Yeah, you can finish. And then we'll get Jason to explain. I want to put him on the spotlight.
But then I thought, it's like, well, what if, even though it's a very small chance, what if they play in like, not even necessarily, like what if they win against anyone? Just win a game, right? Or what if they lose, but it's a really competitive game?
Yes.
Then all of a sudden they've done a good thing for, female CS everywhere.
Yeah.
Jason, over to you.
I mean, no, you can't decline the fucking invite if you're them. That's insane. You take
Why
the
not?
opportunity. You take the opportunity given to you. You haven't done anything wrong. All you've done is play by the rules you have, and it's allowed you. Because I didn't hear anyone calling for fucking Drillas to drop out when they were using a loophole. No one was saying,
did.
"Hey,
Yeah,
I did.
no, you." I heard everyone rooting for their failure. I didn't see anyone on any talk show being like, "This team should drop out. They're
Do you
exploiting."
not follow Richard on social media?
No, I do, but I don't actually see his tweet. I don't look at Twitter. But no, like why does this team need to decline an invite? Why does this team need to decline an invite? They haven't done anything wrong.
Because Yanko pointed it out, right? Like, so there's
To avoid
two.
the what's the word?
Is it backlash?
Backlash, exactly. Thank you.
But there's two worlds, and Yanko highlighted both of them.
As if the women's Counter-Strike players and females teams aren't getting enough backlash. They need to just drop out
Yeah,
of the
but it
tournament.
can only
They're not getting backlash. They're getting hate.
It can only get worse here, Jason,
what?
right? Like Yanko's right. He presented both scenarios. So
Come
one of
on,
two things happened. They can either be competitive or win, right? Which is great. That is huge. That's what we're looking for. We are looking that's what we are looking for, women to be able to be integrated with everybody else and not even playing exclusively in women's teams. We're like in my ideal world, we get to a point in Counter-Strike where men and women both being able to compete on the same team, and we're just talking about good players. We're not talking about gender or sex, right?
That's a beautiful image, but that's not even the question that we're talking about here.
I know, but
okay.
Look, I understand like where you're coming from here, but the negative is if they go into this and they draw against a good team, this is single elimination best of 3, and
They
we're
get to
dealing
pick their
with
opponent, I think, don't they?
even still.
Yes.
Okay.
If they get owned, Jason, if they get destroyed, the dialogue will be more vicious than it has ever been. Because, right, even though it's not their fault that the way that the VRS was set up that allowed them to get an invitation spot, essentially other people, because of the negligence of Valve, have been cheated out of the opportunity to get to play in this tournament and potentially earn points. Right? If they get owned, we already know that the discourse, we've all played a face at Pug and had a woman on our team and heard these fucking dickheads on our team just shit on her because they're all immature kids, right? And we've had to tell these kids to shut up or like tell the woman to mute them or whatever because we find ourselves. And also, I don't want to speak on behalf of the plight of women in Counter-Strike because I'm not a woman. It's not my fucking place to do that. But I know that, like, from my experience of being in the server with them, it doesn't seem like a fun time, right? Like, most of the time.
Yeah.
So they're already in a horrible position in the first place. But if they go into this and they get owned, like if I'm talking like losing games like 13-3, 13-5, right? And they're not competitive at all, right? There's a handful of... They win a pistol round and they get a conversion. Okay,
They
great.
probably won't be competitive, to be honest with you.
But if they're not, think about the discourse that is going to come out on the back of that. They should never have been in this event, right? And it's going to pile on top of the conversation that is already had, right? And the whole point of like Impact and all of these events is to put out there is to present a space that they can compete with one another and get better, right? Where they don't feel like they're being like the world is against them, right? That is the whole reason that they kind of have their own circuit, is so that they feel they're in a place where they can compete and feel more comfortable about things. At least that's my assumption on the way things go. Because we want to get them to a point, like video games were, back in the day, it was a predominant dude thing. That's not the case anymore, right? Like, there is a lot of women that play video games across the board, but when you're a woman and you jump into a game and you're getting harassed and abused the whole time, I can't imagine you really want to log in again and play again.
It's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, so this whole environment they find themselves in is one that can help them get to a certain level, then where hopefully they can be integrated. But right now, if they go here, it has the potential to set back where we were headed, because they are making progress. Like, you look at some of their players and you go, yeah, they can fucking frag.
I don't think there's enough ground to be set back to make that a consideration. And also, these kinds of things are things you don't consider when you're competing. Like, you've never competed and been like, oh, I wonder what the backlash is going to be like if we lose this game.
I'm also not a woman, though, you know?
Yeah, but that's not the point. Like, you don't come into it. I actually think it should be pretty commendable that they have accepted the invite and they're going to come here and play. I think it's great. I think it's a good first step. I don't know if it's obviously, I don't think it's going to pan out well. I think they're going to get destroyed. But if this is what you want to see, if you want to see this integration, then how can anyone turn down an opportunity to get that integration underway? How are you supposed to turn that down?
The integration is meant to come when it's merit-based. This isn't merit-based.
It is merit-based. It's
no,
merit-based
it's not.
it is off of a broken system, but I don't think that's their fault. So why should they turn it down?
What do we? Oh, I was going to make a gag at America's sake there. I won't do it.
You can go for it.
No, we're friends, me and America now. We're going to have a great time.
Yeah, sure.
Me and the Americans are going to be friends.
I think there's no way you turn down this invite. I think they absolutely should take it. And I think they actually should come and compete. And hopefully they can show some good things in a competitive nature. Hopefully they can pick an opponent they might be able to beat. Likely not. And yeah, but that backlash is always going to be there. The backlash is there just when Impact things are announced. Like, the negative backlash is there just playing in the events that they're supposed to be playing in. So who the fuck cares? Go show up and see what you can do. That's it.
The problem is if that's fuck all, then it's like, well...
Yeah, it's gonna get worse. But the first people to take this step in anything of breaking that kind of a barrier is always going to get huge fucking backlash regardless. I don't think it's their fault that this loophole was created. I don't think it's their fault that they're exploiting it. I don't think it's their fault that they got the invite. I think they should accept it. They should go and play, and the consequences are going to be what the consequences are. But I guarantee you, I would wager that 95% of every other woman playing on a women's team at the Impact League are cheering this team on and want them to accept it and want them to go do well. If the whole point is to have this kind of representation and let it be visible to other women in this space. No, I'm with you. I think we're all aligned in what the outcome is going to be. They're going to pick an opponent. They're going to get destroyed. They're going to get destroyed through the whole format.
I'm not even predicting they'll get destroyed. I don't think they'll win. There is a world where they could be competitive. Look, here's what I'll say. And this is crazy, but I'm going to say this because I'm fucking loopy Chad, they call me around these parts.
Yeah, he's had 3 beers. Yeah, he's all ready to go.
I'm sobering up now. If I was them and I had that invite, Christmas is cancelled, New Year's is cancelled.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm practicing now.
Grinding.
And to some people, that's going to sound insane. Oh, but it's a holiday time. You are representing an entire gender right now. Like, not just yourself. You are getting the opportunity to potentially do something groundbreaking in the new era of Counter-Strike. Partner leagues are dead. That's over. And if you go in and you beat any team of any reputation, you will get points and you might even get another invite to another tournament and you can fucking go again. So if I'm them and it's right now and it's the fucking 20th of December, I don't give a fuck what day it is. Days don't matter. It's how many days until bounty starts. Because if we give a fuck about competing in Counter-Strike and wanting to be the best and show that women can compete with men, then let's get in the fucking server and let's grind. And let's play every single fucking day. And let's get in there and let's shut up all these stupid little cunts out there. And let's show that we have what it takes. That's what I think. But if I see any of them out there celebrating any fucking holiday... No, that's fine. They can celebrate Christmas with your family. It's okay. It's okay. But my point is, you got to be grinding. Like, you have to seize this fucking opportunity right now, because the way that it can go, either way, it can have big ramifications. Because I really worry if we're getting back-to-back 13-1s. If we get back-to-back 13-1s, Jason, I don't want to read the internet for a week. I don't want to be on it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't want to be there because you know what it's going to be like. It's going to be horrible. It's gonna be fucking horrible.
I was having this conversation with Scrawny last night. I actually this kind of an announcement makes me uneasy because I just know the dog shit comments and arguments I'm going to have to read with randoms out there into the world is a fucking train wreck whenever this kind of shit happens. But you just hype me up, dude. This is why you don't decline the invite. Like, that's exactly the mindset you go into it with. We're the first female team to accept an invite at a tier 1 tournament that's in the professional circuit. Like, this is the chance to prove ourselves. Let's fucking grind it. Let's lock in. Let's spend the next 3 weeks just fucking practicing and grinding. By the way, if you're Imperial female, who are you picking to play against? Look at this team list. Who are you picking?
I haven't looked that hard, Jason. I'm on vacation.
Who are you picking?
I'm on holidays, bro.
Fluxo's looking good. I might pick a Fluxo. I'm not going to lie to you there.
I don't think it can work that way.
No, you can only pick from the top.
From the top
16.
Oh, shit, from the top 16?
Yeah, you can't pick from anyone.
Jason.
Like, you can
All right.
which one of the favorites you want?
You go
you
for
pick Team Liquid.
You go for Saw or you go for Pain?
You go for Saw. You wouldn't go for Pain.
Saw with the roster changes might be something there.
But
yeah,
I think,
you go for Saw.
I think the top 16 is now. It has to be now,
or maybe you go for complexity if Alish moves somewhere. You wait for maybe some roster changes, and then you hop on that complexity hype train.
Now
I
we're
think though
cooking.
the one biggest problem for female teams has always been that when they go out, even in these qualifiers and stuff, it's like people play against them with no respect, only because they're female, right? Even though there's actually some good players on those teams, right? And what they do on the server is not like they don't watch Tier 1 CS and try to replicate that. They do, and they do a decent job at it. The problem is you go up against like Jimmy from Sussex, and he's playing against, the top female team, but he knows they're females, and he's like playing no fear and
It's like Justin against Flyquest.
and all this stuff and full disrespect, and it's like it's hard for everyone to play against that. I mean, that's Art's whole philosophy of playing Counter-Strike. It's just going YOLO every single time, right? And I think that was like always the issue when I was around. It is like, well, this is kind of tough actually, because these people are not doing things that necessarily make sense. They're just doing it because like they feel like they can bully you on the server, right? And it's actually because of that way of playing that you are getting screwed. So it's
double-edged sword
term for that. Nah, something else, but I can't remember now. So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be tough, but yeah, I hope they listen to Chad's little speech here and follow through.
There's a couple other things in this Blast Bounty though that are kind of interesting too, like Falcons coming in as the wild card.
Yeah, but
I
that
think
was
the general conversation is that they have to have a roster submitted.
Yeah, but they definitely have at least 3
Let's
players.
talk about that after New Year's. There's plenty of time to talk about Blast Bounty, I feel like.
I just we can.
I just think the Falcons announcement is interesting
because
because
you episode, bro, from Belgrade.
Yeah,
Just thought of that.
I have them 2 of the microphones. Jason can bring his mixer.
I can if you would like to do that.
We'll figure it out. I just had that realization, just like a light bulb moment.
We don't need to go into too much detail about it, but I don't think there's any surprise, at least in my mind, that wildcard, one of the wildcard slots went to fucking Falcons at all. Like, of course that was going to happen. And like people are like, oh, they don't have a roster. Of course they submitted the certain amount of players, guys. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, they have Nico, they have Magisk, and then if Monacy's not going, they need an AWPer. Maybe they keep some Pius. Like, he's actually good. It's just the team was shit. Well, actually, let me take that back because I can imagine the comments. Sampaius had a 0.9 rate. Sampaius can be good, and I imagine with good players around him, he'll probably want to be good. Not in like a dead end team that was dead since the beginning.
Another opera who's better than
that apparently was dead since spring. Zonics really not doing many favors these days. Maybe chill with the interviews.
But I don't know how you make those statements and feel like that's justified.
Which part? Oh, Zonic.
Yeah, like, why are you also, at the end of the day, why are you telling these players they're going to be cut? Like, sure, you don't need to lie to them to their faces, sort of, but it is, for me, it would be realistic. Listen, you can earn your spot on that roster. Like, and it starts now. Like, why would I change a player if he's working hard, doing well, executing his role on a high level, right? If I have him already on the team, why would I bring him for someone else? If he's ticking all the boxes. The problem is none of them were. Like, they were all just... And I don't know how these players could allow it for themselves. And I'm very tired of this excuse. Like, we didn't have a star player. We didn't have firepower. Firepower matters for your ceiling, not your floor. Like, and the reason why they had the lowest floor out of all the teams, because they were just a dysfunctional group. the entire time. It's like people sort of knew they were not going to be there, so people probably weren't like as focused. They weren't trying as hard. They were just going through the motions. It's actually the worst possible environment for a competitive team to be in. But that's not as much like that's your job as the coach and your performance there and all these guys. Like your job is to create a good environment and set goals. Like how many times did we hear him talk about that shit in fucking Vitality and Astralis? Oh, we're constantly setting goals. Well, set fucking, lower expectations and lower goals. Set some more realistic goals. And because it was really sort of embarrassing what they were putting out there for everyone involved. For everyone involved. All the players, Zonic as well. Like this is now with this new Falcons project, like the new roster, however it looks like now, if that doesn't succeed, all of a sudden it's like, well, actually, dude, we're just this one team for a lot of people on that team.
Yeah, maybe it all just fell into place just randomly.
It's like, right? Like the conversation changes so much.
I think the thing with that is that dialogue is like a curious one, right? And I don't really want to get into the nitty and the gritty of it, but I think the one thing is true that it was the right mix of personalities and people, right? Like, depending on who did what or who provided what or who was the mastermind of what, that group of people was the successful group of people. And that's essentially what Counter-Strike is as a team, right? But for a coach in implementing a system, we're shifting away from it being... There's definitely room for coaches who are personality based and bring out the right elements of players in teams for sure. Like, don't get me wrong here. But I think when we're looking and talking about coaches being elite level or like a coach to be the one that is kind of like such a difference maker, the new model for that has been set by a Blade. And I think that somebody else that falls in that category is an Ash, right? But right now, those names are still... Well, no, not... Come on now, obviously not the same level. It just sounds
funny. I know, it just sounds funny, man. Like, it's because a guy can create a YouTube channel, like, all of us, whatever. I like him.
No, but
don't get this wrong. I like him. It's just funny when you put him in the same sentence as Blade. So.
But what he provides for his team is like a clear system, right? Like they have a philosophy that the coach has such a big impact of how they approach the game. The same with Blade. That's kind of the point that I'm making. Whereas, like, you have to start to question with some of these other guys who are legendary with different rosters in the past if they're bringing that same type of pedigree, which I imagine they're probably not, right? They're not bringing that same level of thing, getting everybody to buy, and they're trying to maybe do things a bit more old school, which also has its place still. Like, don't get me wrong, but yeah, that was all.
Bro, the thing is, players will see through your bullshit. Like, that's the thing. You can't bullshit, especially the experienced players, the good players, right? Like, and the only thing that matters is knowledge. Like, you need to know, and you need to have the answers for them. If they ask, oh, why this, how that, blah, 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 you need to have an answer ready for it. Otherwise, it's just like, what are you doing? And yes, the in-game knowledge is one and the most important one, and that's your Blade, and that's whatever. And the more personality one is sort of, if you want to talk again about someone like Robin and at different times with FaZe, it's more like knowledge about, well, how do I get these guys online for the key moments, right? And that's, that's a different sort of knowledge, but also very important depending on the composition of your team. Anything else there, like, doesn't matter. You can talk the talk however much you want, but you need to walk the walk. So I hate that I just said that, but it's like at the end of the day, you just need to know, and you need to. And when they talk to you and you tell them shit and they ask you shit, like, you need to see that you got a handle of it and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What did you guys think of Alistair getting replaced?
I thought nothing except I was just laughing.
Of you.
Chad was right the whole time. It's like we could have rewinded time and been in the same place that you guys are in now.
Well, I'm going to be kind, and not just like because like that's the thing to do. That's because I actually think he made progress in the last 6 months. Genuinely, they won Atlanta, and then watching him. Well, yeah, in the last 3 months, he had made progress. Like, he actually looked like he was becoming less of a liability for the team, which is setting the bar extremely low. But he didn't look out of place as much. He wasn't getting caught with nades in his hand. And one of the things that I would give credit is he never, like, kicked up a stink, right? Like, he was never like, oh, fuck. Like, maybe privately, he was like, oh, fuck all these guys. Like, fuck them for, but publicly from the outset, like, he always kept the same kind of demeanor. It's clear that he was trying to put his head down and work. So I give all the respect in the world to that because, you know, you could easily go the other way and, oh, woe is me, everybody's against me, like, this fucking sucks, and throw in it. That's what I did. Whereas he just, you know, he worked hard and did make improvements to his game, and the team made it to the major, which is what they didn't manage to do at the start of the year. And they were one series away, which, to be fair, they weren't really close in those series, from qualifying to the next stage of play. To see him get replaced, it is immediately the question of, well, who are they going to replace him with? And I think I'll be right again. I would imagine 99.9% of me says it's going to be an international player. There is no Australian player that they would add to that roster. You wouldn't replace Ali if you were going to get another Aussie. You wouldn't, not for an AWPer. So it will be someone international, whether it's European or American. I'm not certain. Maybe even someone from Asia, because Urkast is the coach. He's Mongolian. So there could be some Mongolian players with decent English that you could consider. But yeah.
What's a shame is he played really well in 2 of those 3 series they lost in the opening stage. After they went 2-0, he actually did really. I mean, you don't go 2-0 and then eliminated 2-3 based off just one player. So I don't think he was necessarily a reason why they didn't end up qualifying for the next stage. But yeah, that's kind of a bummer that you almost get to a point where all that work kind of pays off and you almost turn the corner to an extent. But
yeah, that's what I felt, right? Like, so yeah. I kind of question it in the sense of it must have been one or two things, or maybe a combination of both. The progress was too slow, right? There was progress, but maybe it was too slow, and it meets the axis of evil. No, of that they have a potential pickup that is going to immediately have a comparable, if not higher, output. I'm not saying it's a star player or a known entity, but it could just be someone who's more acclimatized with the style and the meta that is necessary to be playing at that level of CS.
I mean, that'd be a curious conversation though too, because I imagine you could probably find some improvement going international in like a Liaz or a Vexite position as well. I know the AWPer is unique in the sense of you're constantly playing around an AWPer, so you want someone who's got some experience in that role. But they probably could have gone a couple of different places if they really wanted to.
But
if they were confident in this step up from alistair.
I think Ali and Liaz were the two that were probably the most likely, if not maybe looking at a coach position as well. But that Sammy guy just got released from, or maybe not released, did he get benched over there on Sangal?
Yeah.
So I saw that and I thought, well, maybe that guy.
Sure.
I don't know.
Surely
I
they would be
really
a
don't
bit
know.
higher than.
But who?
Than that. Than Sammy? Yeah, I don't know.
He's not bad. I'm not saying he's great. I'm not coming out here and I'm not singing all these praises and shit. But
it's also they'd probably love to look at a higher tier AWPer than that as well. But then you also got to think which higher tier AWPer is going to be willing to go play with the Aussies as well.
Well, I think the thing is so I had spoken to Papa Smitty a bit, and it feels like one of the things that I would say is I feel that the team needs to be in Europe more, right? Like you guys have all heard this from me before. So I'm curious now, if they have gone, all right, boys, well, we've given you the year and you've done things your way, but now we're going to do things our way, right? And I'm curious. I don't know. I could be way off base, but I imagine there's probably some organizational pressure that comes into play here. So that type of an upgrade, or maybe where they find themselves, because they're playing in the bounty. So Flyquest, they're going to have to head over to Europe early.
They're coming in January, yeah.
There you go.
Place.
There you go. On the 9th, they're having dinner as well at yours?
No, I think they'll be practicing at the time. They'll be busy.
Fuck. Sad, man. But yeah, that's an interesting one, at least for my region. So I'm curious to see what comes out.
Yeah, you feel like they should make 2, no? 2-player change?
Yeah, I don't know. You can, you could get away and then you could keep the core 3, right? And you would still be able to maintain these invites and stuff. Maybe they don't. I don't want to say they don't have the money. I imagine Flyquest does have money. Their League of Legends team's pretty good, isn't it, Jason?
They should. Also stickers and everything should be fine, but yeah. But even a little bit of this. What the hell? Oh, of course. Never mind.
We can be good. We can be good. We can let Chad go to sleep on his 3 beers.
No, I mean there was
it's probably a bit
Chad?
more. Wait, no, you're right. I'm just looking at the time. You're
no,
right.
I think it was one of the things was like this whole Monacy thing, and all of a sudden now he's staying at G2, which is like, okay, it feels like, but what is G2 going to do a year? Is there a world in which Monacy is like going to extend with them and not just wait out?
Well, that's the thing, right? He could leave 6 months later. Isn't that the conversation? Is like Monacy could leave like within 6 months after, like within the second season of the year. I thought that was the dialogue around this, which
I
then
think
means
for free it's at the end of next year.
Okay,
right?
so
I think that's like when his contract will have expired. So then it's like, well, you could have sold him now for a lot of money. And then now basically G2 is sort of banking on we'll get him to extend. Like we'll build a great team. Like we'll get a really, really good player for Nico. And then this team will be really good and he won't want to leave. But I don't know like how realistic is that, man. I think probably what's going to happen is like he'll end up going at the half season for like some money because G2 will still get something, right? And let's say Falcons, or I guess Falcons is the only team really, but will still be willing to pay something to get them like at that point rather than wait 6 months to get them for free.
Yeah.
Because I don't think this is Falcons not being willing to pay. This is like G2 making a statement that we just are not willing to let, two of our best and star players go at the same time to the same team. Like, what does that speak of them as an org, right? If, it feels
it'd be over for G2 if Monacy and Nico went. It'd be fucking GG.
Yep.
Yeah, who do they get? Who would then... It's not the most lucrative of environments to go to,
Yeah. No, I was talking to... there was a player manager, not a player manager, a player agent who was in China, and he came and sat down next to me and Alex while we were watching one of the series, and we were talking about all this stuff. And I don't know all the players he represents, and I won't say the players he does represent just so I keep his identity hidden. But he said he reckons that Falcons would pay up to $3 million for Monacy. That he said they would probably spend that much.
I can buy that.
So like the fact that G2 would be turning down that type of money is because I think exactly what Yanko's saying. They need to kind of protect the team that they have right now, because otherwise it would be like when you moved away from French Counter-Strike, right? You are starting again. And the last time they did this was with the crazy acquisitions, right? Like when they had Hunter and Nexa come over, and then they merged them with the Frenchmen.
Yeah, but this is even why it's so crazy to me that they let like Nico leave. Well, I guess "let" isn't the right word, but like that's
they wouldn't pay him, right? Isn't that how it goes?
Putting yourself, I don't know what the actual, I don't know the details. That was like the rumor they wouldn't pay him the same that Falcons was going to offer him the first time around. He wanted a little bit more money.
Well, it's not about that. It's about they wanted him to take a pay cut. I think was.
Fuck, they get the Joe Miller special, Yanko. Was it 15% or?
I don't know.
Either way, I don't know what the exact details of it are, but that's why it is why it's so surprising that they would let Nico go away when him and Monacy have that kind of a connection to where it's like you are now in a position where your team is just sort of gutted. Like you can talk about the other guys as great pieces, but if you don't have the great players, I don't even think they're nearly as good as pieces anymore if you don't have a great Nico in the middle of that. If you don't have a great
Monacy and Malbs is a good base, though, don't you think?
Yeah, but you got to get someone new for Nico, which is going to be a question of where you want to go, and you're probably going to do it in a way that allows Malbs to have priority on the positions he wants to play moving forward. You think Spinks will be the one?
And then he's not your second voice? Hunter? Snacks and Hunter?
Yeah. Like, Spinks is not a one-for-one for Nico by positions, but...
I don't think there's a doubt, in Malbs' like,
ability,
skill, anything like that. But is only the one major the one that he has problems with pressure? Like the second one, he's already.
He'll get better over time, don't you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. The only question is how much time.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I believe that he'll find a way, because it's very reminiscent.
He's got
actually of Nico in his early days, right? Like the frustration,
slamming at the desk, and then the next round he looked at his hand like he'd heard it. I was like, bro.
That's all fine as long as you sort of work through it, right? Like you get it over with. If it persists, then it's a problem. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Now it's all, I guess we'll just talk about it when some of this shit happens and then see how it looks like. The one interesting thing that also happened was that ESL announced their sort of
26
club
states.
Yeah.
The club
No,
thing,
no, the
right?
26 states are all right, but there's the club stuff.
Yeah, they added the extra
Yeah.
incentive where it's like for the smaller IMs, really, anything outside of Katowice and Cologne, you get more than double the prize money in this club money, which is one thing, and you get that based off of.
There's two programs.
Was
There's one that's like event based, and there's one that's like the Blast frequent flyers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's club prize money, there's annual payouts, they're tied to ESL's forecasted revenues and profits. ESL shares 10% of its revenue and 25% of its profits from Tier 1 Counter-Strike esports competitions to fund these payouts. But regardless, like there's a lot of money going into this club prize money, which goes to the org. And then it's up to sort of, I guess, the players and the org to figure it out. Are the players going to get any of that, or is that going to go 100% to the org?
Well, they do get paid 20,000 euros a month, so they should probably just shut their fucking mouth.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, whatever. That's up to them to figure out all that stuff. But for example, for an event like Dallas, the player prize money, which is like the prize pool, is going to be 300K. But then
they
there's
upped
an
it by
additional
50 grand.
Yeah, and then there's an additional 700K in club prize money. So that brings the total sort of prize pool to $1 million for Dallas, for Chengdu, for these IEMs. But here's the thing, which I was surprised to see. The club prize money actually gets counted in the VRS.
Yes.
Are we sure? Does it?
Yes. It's official
Yes,
now.
it says at somewhere in the thing.
Yeah, it's happening now, Jason.
Okay, that's because that was
happening.
okay. That was the big thing that was like interesting to me is that counted as VRS as prize money, or is it because it's not technically prize money, but it is technically prize money?
It is prize money. It's just where the prize money goes.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. Okay.
But it's still
Which is
like
also in reality. This is only formulated this way because of the orgs. Because in reality, it's all prize money. Just that the standard contracts between teams and players is where players get 80, 85, 90% of the prize money. So this is a way for them to say, oh, it's not prize money, so you players are not entitled to this. Like, this is exactly the sort of a thing where a player organization would go like, hey, wait, you're trying to fuck us over, right? Like, no, we're not going to stand, and they would have a sort of a dispute about this thing.
But this feels like it's like the battleground for like the VRS calendar next year, especially between a PGL and an ESL, is this club share side of things, because PGL's events have the most prize money in that one block, and now this club share is like a bucket in that prize money that is meant to also, you have incentives for players with the prize money in the VRS, and now you have it for the organization to also push towards going to this event because they have the club share of the prize money plus the VRS as well. So while the prize money is higher overall in this one bucket at PGL, if club share wasn't going to be VRS, that would probably seem more intriguing to the players, right? Like, this feels like it was going to be the battleground of whether that VRS was going to count the club share incentives.
Well, gentlemen, it all comes back to this. If only the players had their own organizations and were just five dudes and a coach and a manager, and then they could go to whatever events they wanted. I wonder which genius had that idea previously.
Like,
I don't know.
This feels like a very similar like loophole to like the whole, Imperial getting invited through a loophole, Drillas. Like, this is just another loophole.
This is a loophole,
wide open. This
Jason,
feels like a loophole to me.
No, this is, in my opinion, different companies trying different business models to see what is profitable, because you need to keep in mind the rationale behind a lot of this is to draw the best names to your product to keep. I
agree with you 100%, and I agree 100% with everything you just said. It just still feels like a loophole that it counts for the VRS. In my mind, that's a loophole that a club share goes to the VRS.
This is the thing,
but it all goes to the club. That's the thing. It all goes to the club. It's only the players get it because they have an agreement with the club that they get a percentage of the prize pool.
Right, but I don't.
The money doesn't
guarantee
go from
you,
ESL straight into you know,
Nico's pocket, for example.
yes,
Yeah.
it goes to G2, then G2 pays it out to him.
Yeah.
Like his
I
proceeds.
understand, but their contracts. I would be amazed if the player contracts provide that the club share is going to fall under their 80% as well.
But that's going to have to be
obviously,
part of
that's not something
renegotiating.
And that's the loophole.
But it's not a loophole, Jason, because here's the thing. Previously, there was partner leagues, right, where they were getting paid directly from Blast and ESL. And then whatever the players got of that was, we don't know what type of split there was there. But it's because the players get paid such a premium. And I said this before. I spoke to management of teams back when we were in Rio. And some of these teams had conversations with their players. They said, listen, PGL are offering a shitload of money. They're going to pay you out immediately. If you want to go to these events, that's fucking fine. But the trade-off here is you will have your salary halved because we are not getting any guaranteed revenue as your employer anymore. So we can't pay you 20 grand a month, but we can pay you 10. And then guess what, guys? If you want to go out there and make the same type of money, you have to win. But of course, players are going to take the safe route. Why would I want to win when I could just be top 8 and get paid 20 grand? Let's just do that, shall we? That seems like the better option, right? If you're putting people in a position of security of salary, security of the amount of money that they earn in a year, of course these guys are going to go the safe option. So that's why they're at the mercy of their organizations. And that is the way we find ourselves. And again, if we all listen to Chad and we just had 6 dudes traveling around the world called Tom Swinging Dicks, then they could earn as much money as they wanted if they were the best. But guess what? You want to play big business? You got to play by the big businessman's rules, motherfucker. That's capitalism. That's 2024. That's 2025. That's drones. That's fucking UAPs. That's Alex Jones. That's your country, Jason. And I'm all for America.
Frogs.
USA. USA. Let's fucking do it. Fuck Fauci.
Oh, for fuck's sake. It peaked.
That was great.
I didn't know he was going to go there. Yeah.
Chaz had two banging speeches.
I know. He's done a good job today.
I think it's just obvious, right? Like PGL is going full into the prize money and like incentivizing like
The players.
teams in that way, players sort of to say we want to play these tournaments, and then Blast and ESL are going more like, hey, we want to incentivize the orgs. Or also for ESL, their IEMs are fucking not in Europe. You know, the smaller ones.
True.
With Chengdu and Dallas.
Harder
so
to get people out there,
You're going to have to get people to get out there. So that's why it's 300K prize. It's 700K for the club. So they'll be like, well, you'll go to this one, but maybe you'll miss one of the whatever other ones. So also the viewership stuff is in there. I mean, a lot of details.
Yeah,
involved.
there is. Oh, well, 2025 is shaping up to be fun.
Yeah.
With those drones. Can I just say one last thing before we're done?
Absolutely.
All right, so this is not directed to the two of you. This isn't directed to 99.9% of our viewers. This is directed to our friends at ESL. Guys, it's the 20th of December. You're running out of time. We would really like some form of a reply. I spoke to you in Shanghai when you were there. And if any of you are listening, it's probably Mark.
What's up, Mark?
Just give us, just say no. Like, that's fine too, guys. No's fine. I'll take a no. I just don't want a nothing. I have to plan my year. So let us know, because you're upsetting me now, and I don't want to be upset. That's the end.
I don't like being upset.
I don't
That's
like
it.
Chad being upset.
That's it. That's it.
I
That's all I have
love
to
being
say.
upset myself. But yeah. Thanks, Chad.
Shout out to all the Americans one time. We love you, USA. We fucking love you. Let's go.